What if the darkest corners of history hold secrets so chilling they defy all logic? For centuries, mysteries have lingered in the shadows, untouched by time, whispers of ancient forces, unsolved disappearances, and inexplicable events. From the depths of lost civilizations to the eerie silence of vanished peoples, these stories are more than just tales. They're real, and they challenge everything we think we know about the world. What happened in the land of Palestine centuries ago? Who, or what, left behind clues so cryptic even the sharpest minds still can't decode them? So sit back, relax, and let's dive into 3 hours of history's most terrifying mysteries. The sun was beginning to set on the Mediterranean as the Carthaginian explorer Hanno embarked on a journey that would, centuries later, become one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. His expedition, which took place around the 5th century BC, is recorded in a text known as the Periplus of Hanno, a scroll that chronicles his voyage along the western coast of Africa. Hanno's account is brief, but it raises more questions than it answers, leaving behind a trail of intrigue that stretches from the coastlines of ancient Libya to the southern shores of a world that, at the time, was only just beginning to be understood. The journey began in Carthage, a powerful city-state that once dominated the Mediterranean. Hanno's mission was ostensibly a simple one: to establish new colonies and explore the uncharted lands to the south. However, as he ventured further, the narrative takes an unexpected turn. His descriptions, written in the form of a logbook, document strange and wondrous encounters, sights that defy the limits of the known world. The lush jungles and wild coastlines, the towering mountains, and the animals that roamed these lands. But what he really encountered, as he sailed past the familiar coasts of Tunisia and onward towards the deep, untamed regions, remains a matter of speculation. One of the most striking elements of Hanno's log is his mention of an ancient, mysterious civilization, one whose geography doesn't quite match the world we know today. He describes great cities and islands where the land itself seems to rebel against the world's understanding of time. His crew came across lands of peculiar beauty and, in some cases, near mythical creatures that he described as monstrous. But it was his reference to a place called the Atlantic Sea and the gods of the deep that has captured the imagination of historians and armchair theorists alike. Some scholars have suggested that Hanno's writings represent nothing more than a fantastical exaggeration. They argue that his descriptions were likely embellished or misunderstood, a common practice for explorers eager to impress their patrons back home. But is it possible that the Carthaginian explorer had stumbled upon something greater than his contemporary understanding could grasp? Could it be that Hanno was describing the remains of an ancient civilization, long lost to time, possibly even one that existed before recorded history itself? The most intriguing aspect of Hanno's voyage, however, is what he didn't describe: the geography of the lands he encountered, or rather, the lack of specific details. He speaks of vast forests and mountainous landscapes, but avoids naming specific landmarks or providing coordinates. What Hanno did leave behind in his cryptic descriptions, however, are references to places that might not exist, or at least not in the way we might expect. For instance, he describes an encounter with islands of the sea, islands that were said to be located far from the coast of Africa. These islands were lush with vegetation, seemingly untouched by human hands. He speaks of a kind of mysterious void beyond them, where his expedition could not proceed. Did this represent an area that was physically unreachable, or perhaps a symbol of the unknown? Over time, as new expeditions and explorations pushed further into Africa and beyond, scholars have attempted to trace Hanno's journey, but they continually run into dead ends. Some suggest that his path led him to the western coast of Africa, perhaps even to the region that we know today as Morocco or modern-day Senegal. Others speculate that the islands he referred to could have been part of the Canary Islands, which were only discovered by Europeans in the 14th century AD, over 1,000 years after Hanno's time. Perhaps most famously, some theorists have linked Hanno's writings to the lost civilization of Atlantis. According to Plato's Timaeus and Critias, Atlantis was a prosperous, technologically advanced civilization that existed long before the rise of Greece and was ultimately destroyed by a catastrophic event. While there is no direct evidence that Atlantis existed in the way Plato described it, the idea of a lost, advanced civilization has continued to captivate the minds of historians, archaeologists, and even fiction writers. Could Hanno have sailed far enough south to stumble upon remnants of this forgotten world? Could the islands of the gods be Atlantis itself, hidden by time and the ocean's unforgiving tides? There are, of course, those who argue that the Atlantis connection is nothing more than a modern interpretation of Hanno's somewhat vague words. The ancient Greeks, for instance, had a rich tradition of myth-making and often intertwined fact with legend. Could it be that the islands Hanno referred to were simply exaggerated elements of a journey that was more about exploration than discovery? Still, some compelling evidence supports the idea that Hanno's journey did venture into lands that were not part of the known world at the time. Some of the plants and animals he described seem to match the descriptions of creatures that could only have lived in tropical regions far beyond Carthage. The references to the people with no shoes and the monstrous beasts also suggest encounters with indigenous groups whose way of life was so foreign to Hanno that they might have appeared almost otherworldly to his eyes. Another compelling aspect of Hanno's account is the mystery of the Temple of the Gods. He mentions a site where he and his crew found an abandoned temple with a carving of a creature that resembled a hybrid of human and animal features, something that would not have been part of the normal religious iconography of Carthage or its Mediterranean neighbors. This cryptic reference has been interpreted in many ways, some believing it to be evidence of a lost culture, while others argue it could simply be an overactive imagination spurred by the strange environments they encountered. As we look back on the record of Hanno's voyage, we are left with more questions than answers. Did Hanno simply venture further into the African coast than any explorer before him? Or did he truly stumble upon lands that defy explanation? The accounts he left behind are fragmented, filled with ambiguities, and open to interpretation. And though many of the places he visited may have been rediscovered over time, there remain gaps, places on maps where even today we are unsure of what lies hidden. Perhaps the most poignant mystery surrounding Hanno's journey is this. If these lands were so extraordinary, why did the Carthaginians never speak of them again? Did they, like so many explorers before them, come to fear what lay beyond the horizon? Or is it possible that the answers we seek are still buried beneath the sands of time, waiting to be uncovered by future generations? As the sun sets on our exploration of Hanno's lost geography, we are left to wonder, are there still pieces of this ancient puzzle left to find? And what truths lie in the uncharted waters of the past? The vast plains of ancient Mesopotamia stretch beneath an oppressive sun, their heat distorting the air, as though even the earth itself is caught between realms of the physical and the metaphysical. The city of Babylon rises amid the desert like a testament to both human ambition and mystery. Towering ziggurats, their stone faces weathered by centuries of time, stand as silent sentinels over a civilization that once believed itself at the very heart of the universe. It is in this cradle of human achievement, long before the rise of empires, that a secret was whispered by the Chaldean priests, a doctrine so arcane and potent that it would both shape and shatter the world views of those who dared to learn it. The forbidden Astral doctrine, as it came to be known, holds within it a key to understanding the cosmos, and perhaps even the nature of the soul itself. Babylon, as we know, was a city of immense power, not only politically but also spiritually. Its priests, custodians of the sacred wisdom, held dominion over the heavens themselves. The Chaldeans, famed for their knowledge of the stars and their mastery of astrology, were considered more than mere stargazers. They were believed to possess an ancient and esoteric understanding of the celestial bodies, one that could divine the very fate of kings and empires. Their calculations, their omens, and their rituals all hinted at a knowledge of the cosmos that surpassed the mere observation of stars in the night sky. At the heart of this knowledge lay the astral doctrine. But what was it, really? It is said that this doctrine was no ordinary system of astrology, but rather an intricate framework that bound the cosmos to the soul of every living being. It postulated that the movements of the stars were not just a reflection of fate, but active forces that could influence the very essence of existence. The priests believed that through certain rituals, one could tap into these forces, transcending the boundaries of the human body and even time itself. The doctrine held that the stars were not distant, impersonal objects, but living entities, beings with their own desires, wills, and powers. The Chaldean priests of Babylon claimed to have the ability to commune with these astral entities, to open doors to realms beyond the material world. Through a combination of advanced mathematical calculations, sacred rites, and powerful incantations, the priests could open a channel between the physical realm and the celestial, inviting divine or otherworldly forces into the lives of mortals. The enigmatic part of this practice was the concept of astral projection, a belief that the soul could be detached from the body and travel through the vast expanse of the heavens, entering the very domains of the gods themselves. This idea, later echoed in the philosophies of various cultures, including those of ancient Greece and Egypt, found its roots in Babylonian mysticism. But the Chaldeans didn't simply believe that the soul could travel. They believed it could return with knowledge from realms beyond the stars, secrets of the universe that could grant immense power, immortality, or enlightenment. Yet, what made this doctrine forbidden? The secrecy surrounding the astral doctrine is perhaps its most intriguing feature. Babylonian records do not speak openly of it. While many historical documents mention the power and influence of the Chaldean priests, none of them lay bare the true depths of their practices. What we know of the doctrine comes from fragmented sources, rare and cryptic references found in the margins of ancient texts, or whispers from later civilizations that feared and revered Babylon's power. One of the most perplexing pieces of evidence is an ancient tablet, thought to date back to around 600 BC, that contains a cryptic passage about ascending the celestial spheres. The text suggests a process by which the soul of the practitioner could break free from the confines of the physical world, journeying across the heavens to meet with beings of light and shadow. Scholars have long debated its meaning. Was it a metaphorical journey or something far more tangible, an actual movement between realms? Was it an intellectual pursuit or a practice with a much darker intent? Some suggest that the astral doctrine may have been more than just spiritual enlightenment. They speculate that it may have been a tool of political manipulation, an unspoken way for the priests to control the fates of kings, to determine who would rise to power and who would fall. If the priests could truly commune with the heavens, could they have been influencing not only celestial events but the very course of history itself? The doctrine's secrecy, its deliberate withholding from the general population, adds another layer of mystery. Why were these teachings kept from the masses? Was it a matter of protecting the general populace from the dangers of such powerful knowledge? Or was it something darker, something that only a select few were allowed to wield? Were the rituals, with their focus on astral travel and communion with otherworldly beings, dangerous in ways that we can barely begin to understand? As we dive deeper into the enigmatic past of Babylon, we encounter more questions than answers. Some suggest that the astral doctrine is linked to the rise of certain occult traditions in later centuries. Could this ancient knowledge have traveled with Babylonian scholars to distant lands, influencing the mysticism of Persia, Greece, and beyond? Is there a direct line connecting the Chaldean priests of Babylon with later esoteric traditions that sought to tap into the unseen powers of the universe? And then there's the question of the Chaldeans' legacy. Did they leave behind any traces of their secret knowledge? Some claim that the Great Library of Babylon may have contained further documents on the astral doctrine, texts lost to time, perhaps intentionally hidden away to protect them from falling into the wrong hands. Was the doctrine simply a product of its time, or did it represent a deeper truth, one that may still be waiting to be uncovered? As we stare up at the night sky, it is hard not to wonder, what might we still be missing? What secrets remain hidden, tucked away in the shadows of Babylon's forgotten past? The stars may still shine brightly above us, but what lies beyond them? What knowledge remains locked away in the mysteries of the cosmos, and might we ever have the courage to unlock it? The Chaldean priests of Babylon knew something the rest of the world could only guess at. Whether their astral teachings were divine truth or dangerous illusion, they remain a tantalizing puzzle, a mystery that perhaps will never be fully solved. As we continue to uncover the depths of history's most disturbing and enigmatic mysteries, we turn now to a long-lost body of knowledge that once lay at the heart of one of the greatest civilizations of the ancient world, the Egyptians. Nestled within the walls of the House of Life, an institution shrouded in secrecy, there existed a form of sacred geometry so profound that its teachings have been mostly lost to time, yet its influence endures in ways we still do not fully comprehend. The House of Life, a term used in ancient Egyptian texts, referred to a temple or an institution dedicated to the study and preservation of sacred knowledge, particularly in the realms of astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. This was no ordinary school of learning. It was a place where knowledge was guarded as sacred, passed down from master to disciple, veiled in metaphor and symbol. Within this esoteric framework, one of the most critical areas of study was sacred geometry, a practice that was thought to be the key to understanding the very structure of the universe. In the heart of Egypt, at temples like the one in Heliopolis, the secrets of this sacred geometry were embedded in the very design of their structures and monuments. The pyramids themselves, with their perfectly aligned angles and proportions, stand as living testaments to this lost knowledge. But what exactly did these geometric principles represent? What was their deeper meaning? The ancient Egyptians believed that the universe was governed by order and harmony, and they sought to unlock these universal laws through geometry. Their mathematical understanding was advanced, but far more than a mere system of numbers. Sacred geometry was viewed as a divine blueprint that could influence both the physical and spiritual realms. In their eyes, geometry wasn't just about shapes. It was the language of the gods, the very foundation of creation itself. The golden ratio, phi, and other mathematical patterns were not merely abstract concepts. They were seen as divine structures, reflections of cosmic principles that connected the divine to the human. However, what we know of these teachings today is but a fragment. Much of the knowledge that once flourished in the House of Life was deliberately concealed. Only a handful of texts and artifacts remain, most of them cryptic and fragmented, offering tantalizing glimpses into a more sophisticated understanding of the world. The Rhind mathematical papyrus, for instance, contains detailed instructions on mathematics, but no clear explanation of how the Egyptians linked these principles to the divine or to the greater mysteries of existence. It is as if the most profound aspects of their wisdom were intentionally obscured. One particularly enigmatic feature of these teachings lies in the way they blended geometry with spirituality. the Egyptians did not see the world as a collection of isolated physical objects. Instead, they viewed every element of creation, every stone, tree, and star, as a manifestation of divine geometry. The shape of the pyramid, for example, was more than just an architectural choice. It was a representation of the primeval mound that, according to Egyptian mythology, arose from the waters of chaos at the beginning of time. This mound, the very first land, was said to be the source of all creation, and the pyramid was a symbol of the bridge between the earthly and the divine. Yet, as fascinating as these concepts are, the deeper meanings and practices of the House of Life are largely lost to history. It is widely believed that much of this sacred knowledge was passed on only through oral tradition, handed down from priest to priest, and it is possible that over time some of these teachings were deliberately erased or hidden. But why? Was it a matter of preserving power? Or was there something too dangerous in these teachings, too potent in their potential to change the course of human understanding? Some scholars believe that the priests of the House of Life intentionally concealed their most sacred knowledge in order to protect it from outsiders. It is well documented that the Egyptians held their mysteries close, not sharing them with foreign invaders or even with common people. But others suggest a more speculative theory, that the secrets of sacred geometry were lost not through neglect or malevolence, but because they were too powerful for the human mind to comprehend. Could these teachings have been so advanced, so far beyond our current understanding of the universe, that the Egyptians themselves feared their misuse? One of the most intriguing aspects of sacred geometry lies in its connection to the idea of hidden or lost knowledge. Throughout history, there have been countless references to the idea that the ancients possessed wisdom far beyond our modern capabilities. The notion that the Egyptians, with their sophisticated knowledge of geometry, mathematics, and astronomy, might have understood aspects of the universe that we still do not, is a compelling thought. Could the missing pieces of this knowledge unlock a deeper understanding of our world? Some modern theorists speculate that the lost teachings of the House of Life might hold the key to understanding ancient technologies, including those used to construct the Great Pyramids themselves. Could these geometric principles have been the blueprint for advanced engineering techniques that allowed the Egyptians to create monuments so precise that they defy explanation? Could this sacred knowledge have been linked to other lost civilizations, like those of Atlantis or ancient Mesopotamia, whose own architectural feats still puzzle historians and archaeologists? The connections between sacred geometry and the mysteries of ancient Egypt are deepened by the cryptic references to certain numbers and proportions that appear in Egyptian texts and monuments. For example, the number 7, which was considered sacred in Egyptian cosmology, frequently appears in both architectural design and religious texts. But what was the deeper meaning behind this number? Why was it so significant in their understanding of the cosmos? And what of the constant appearance of the number 3, linked to the triadic nature of the gods and the world itself? Some theories suggest that the ancient Egyptians were attempting to communicate with the divine through these geometric forms, an effort to connect the physical world with the spiritual. This idea is particularly compelling when one considers the precision with which the Egyptians constructed their temples and pyramids. The alignment of these structures with the stars, the sun, and the earth suggests an intimate knowledge of celestial movements, a knowledge that could only be achieved through a sophisticated understanding of sacred geometry. However, the most perplexing question remains: why were these teachings lost? Were they destroyed in the wake of the rise of new powers, such as the Greek and Roman empires? Or did the ancient Egyptians intentionally hide them, possibly because they understood something about the dangers of knowledge when it is misused or misunderstood? As we continue to explore the depths of ancient mysteries, one thing becomes clear: the teachings of the House of Life remain a tantalizing enigma, waiting to be unlocked. Are there fragments of this lost knowledge still buried beneath the sands of Egypt? or will it remain an unsolved riddle, an echo of a time when sacred geometry held the keys to understanding the very nature of existence? The mystery is far from over, and the answers may still be hidden, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. As we continue our exploration of history's most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries, we now shift our focus to a group whose teachings have fascinated scholars and seekers alike for centuries. Tucked away in the desert of ancient Palestine, hidden from the eyes of the world, existed a brotherhood whose secrets were guarded with the utmost secrecy. Known as the Essenes, this enigmatic sect was not just concerned with the physical realm. They delved into profound, otherworldly cosmologies that many believe held the key to understanding the very structure of the universe itself. The Essenes lived in isolation in the rugged deserts near the Dead Sea, their existence largely confined to the harsh and unforgiving landscape of the region. The most famous site associated with their community is Qumran, a remote area where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the mid-20th century. These texts, written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, provide tantalizing glimpses into the Essene worldview, revealing a group that viewed themselves as guardians of divine knowledge and spiritual purity. But what exactly did they know about the cosmos, and how did their beliefs shape their lives? At first glance, the Essenes appear to have been a devout and ascetic group, focused on purity, communal living, and a deep reverence for the divine. Yet beneath this seemingly simple lifestyle lay a hidden and complex cosmology, a secret system of thought that connected them to the heavens, the earth, and even the very structure of the universe itself. It is this aspect of their teachings that has drawn the most attention, as scholars and mystics attempt to unravel the cosmic mysteries they may have held. The Essenes' cosmology was rooted in their belief that the universe was divided into two realms, the material and the spiritual. To the Essenes, the material world was often seen as a place of corruption, decay, and suffering, while the spiritual realm represented purity, enlightenment, and divine order. In order to transcend the physical world, they believed one had to achieve a state of inner purity through strict discipline, prayer, and meditation. This dualistic view of the world, however, was not just a religious ideology. It was a fundamental part of their understanding of the cosmos itself. Their belief system was heavily influenced by apocalyptic ideas, an overarching narrative that the end of the world was imminent and that a new, divine order would soon be established. The Essenes' writings, including the War Scroll, Thanksgiving hymns, and various fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls, contain references to a coming cosmic battle between the forces of good and evil. This battle, they believed, would be fought on both a spiritual and physical level, culminating in the arrival of a messianic figure who would usher in a new age of peace and divine harmony. But beyond the apocalyptic visions and expectations of divine intervention, the Essenes held a much deeper understanding of the cosmos, one that transcended conventional ideas of time and space. Their writings contain references to celestial beings, angels, and divine messengers, all of whom played an integral role in the unfolding drama of creation and the end times. They spoke of a divine order that governed the stars, the seasons, and the very cycles of life and death. And it was through an understanding of this cosmic order that they believed they could access higher knowledge and achieve spiritual transcendence. What is perhaps most fascinating about the Essene cosmology is the way it intertwined with their daily lives. The Essenes were not just interested in metaphysical speculation. They believed that their spiritual practices had the power to influence the world around them. Their communal rituals, which included purification rites, prayers, and sacrifices, were seen as a means of aligning themselves with the divine order and ensuring the survival of the community in the face of impending cataclysm. They believed that by adhering to strict ethical codes and living in harmony with the natural world, they could influence the cosmic forces at play. Some scholars have suggested that the Essenes' view of the cosmos was influenced by the ancient Babylonian, Persian, and even Egyptian teachings, all of which had deep roots in astrology and the study of the stars. The idea that the heavens were not just a backdrop for human existence, but an active participant in the spiritual and physical realms was a key aspect of many ancient belief systems, and it seems likely that the Essenes incorporated elements of these traditions into their own worldview. Yet, despite the numerous references to celestial beings and cosmic battles, the Essenes' understanding of the universe remains frustratingly elusive. Their writings contain numerous allusions to divine revelations, but these are often cloaked in symbolism and metaphor, leaving scholars to sift through layers of allegory and hidden meaning in an attempt to uncover the true nature of their beliefs. Some have suggested that the Essenes may have been influenced by mystical traditions such as Gnosticism, which also emphasized a hidden, esoteric knowledge that could only be accessed by the initiated. One of the most intriguing aspects of Essene cosmology is the possible connection to the enigmatic figure of the Teacher of Righteousness mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls. This mysterious leader was said to have been a prophet who revealed divine truths to the Essene community, and many have speculated that he may have been a messianic figure. Some even believe that this figure could be linked to the historical Jesus, given the similarities between the Essene teachings and the early Christian Gospels. Did the Essenes possess secret knowledge about the cosmos that was passed down through the teachings of this figure? And if so, what truths might have been hidden in their sacred texts that could shed light on the nature of existence itself? Another tantalizing possibility is that the Essenes may have had access to knowledge that was later lost or deliberately suppressed. Were their teachings deliberately concealed by early Christian authorities who sought to suppress competing ideas about the divine and the cosmos? Or did the Essenes themselves choose to hide their most sacred knowledge, perhaps because they feared the consequences of revealing it to the wider world? As we delve deeper into the mystery of the Essene Desert Brotherhood, it becomes clear that there are more questions than answers. The cosmology they held, with its blend of celestial, spiritual, and physical elements, remains one of the most enigmatic and thought-provoking aspects of ancient history. The truths they may have uncovered about the universe, about the divine order that governs all things, are lost to us, their secrets buried in the harsh desert sands. What did the Essenes truly know about the cosmos? And what of their spiritual practices? Could they have been tapping into a deeper understanding of reality, one that remains hidden from us today? The answers may be lost to history, but the mysteries of the Essene Desert Brotherhood continue to echo through time, inviting us to wonder what might still be uncovered. As we continue our journey through the layers of history's most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries, we now turn our attention to one of the most elusive and enigmatic artifacts ever lost to time: the prophetic scrolls of the Temple of Serapis. This once majestic temple, located in the ancient city of Alexandria, Egypt, stood as a beacon of knowledge, a sacred space where prophecy, philosophy, and religion converged. But within the quiet halls of this temple, something extraordinary was said to have been hidden. Scrolls that chronicled prophecies so powerful they could have reshaped the world. The Temple of Serapis, a colossal structure completed in the 3rd century BC, was dedicated to the god Serapis, a deity who represented both Greek and Egyptian elements. It was a place where philosophers, priests, and mystics from all corners of the Mediterranean gathered to seek knowledge. The temple was renowned for its vast library, a repository of wisdom that housed sacred texts, scrolls, and manuscripts, many of which have since vanished without a trace. Among these lost writings were believed to be the prophetic scrolls, ancient manuscripts that detailed visions of future events, cosmic alignments, and even the fate of empires. Little is known about the content of these scrolls, as no complete versions have survived the ravages of time, but there are tantalizing references to them in the writings of ancient historians and scholars. According to some accounts, the prophetic scrolls were penned by a group of highly initiated priests who claimed to have direct knowledge of the divine order of the universe. These priests, shrouded in mystery, were said to possess the ability to communicate with the gods through sacred rituals and visions. Their predictions were believed to be so accurate that they were sought after by rulers and common people alike, eager to know what the future held. But as we explore the fragments of historical references, a chilling pattern begins to emerge. The scrolls may not have been lost by mere chance. The disappearance of the prophetic scrolls coincides with some of the most turbulent moments in Alexandria's history, moments that have left more questions than answers. The city, once a thriving center of culture and learning, would eventually become a battleground of ideologies and political struggles. In the 4th century AD, the rise of Christianity and the subsequent closure of pagan temples by Emperor Theodosius I marked a turning point for Alexandria. It is during this period that the temple of Serapis was destroyed, and many believe the prophetic scrolls were lost in the chaos that followed. But what if these scrolls were deliberately hidden? What if they were taken away, concealed to protect their powerful knowledge from falling into the wrong hands? The idea of lost prophetic texts has long intrigued scholars, as these manuscripts could have held insights into the nature of fate, the cycles of history, and perhaps even the end of the world itself. One of the most intriguing aspects of the missing scrolls is the mystery surrounding their very nature. Were they purely prophetic, offering visions of the future? Or did they also contain hidden knowledge, perhaps related to sacred geometry, cosmic cycles, or forbidden rituals that threatened the established order of the time? The idea that such profound knowledge could have been contained in these scrolls raises even more questions. Did they hold the key to unlocking secrets about the universe that had been hidden from the world for centuries? Some theorists suggest that the prophetic scrolls may have included insights into the political and spiritual destiny of Egypt and the Mediterranean world, anticipating the rise and fall of empires with uncanny accuracy. Could the scrolls have foretold the rise of Christianity and the subsequent decline of the pagan world? Did they predict the fall of Alexandria as a cultural center and the rise of new powers in the region? These possibilities add an eerie weight to the disappearance of the scrolls, suggesting that they contained much more than just mundane predictions. They may have revealed the very course of history itself. But there are also darker theories surrounding the loss of the prophetic scrolls. Some speculate that the scrolls were destroyed not just to prevent their knowledge from spreading, but because they revealed uncomfortable truths about the nature of power, religion, and control. Were the prophecies contained within the scrolls so unsettling that those in power decided to suppress them? Could the scrolls have exposed the corrupting influence of the ruling elite, the manipulation of religion, or even the hidden forces that shaped the course of history? The mystery deepens when we consider the possibility that the scrolls may still exist, hidden away in some forgotten location, waiting to be discovered. Over the centuries, countless explorers and scholars have sought to uncover the lost treasures of Alexandria, but none have been able to find the prophetic scrolls. Could they still be hidden in the ruins of the Temple of Serapis, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? Or have they been carefully concealed, perhaps by a secret society that wishes to keep their knowledge buried? There is also the possibility that the scrolls were not destroyed at all, but instead hidden away in the vaults of some ancient organization. Could secret societies, like the Freemasons or the Knights Templar, have been entrusted with the scrolls, keeping their secrets safe from prying eyes? If so, what did these organizations hope to achieve by guarding such powerful knowledge? And what secrets could the scrolls contain that would warrant such secrecy? In the centuries since the destruction of the Temple of Serapis, the prophetic scrolls have become the stuff of legend. Their fate has captured the imagination of historians, archaeologists, and conspiracy theorists alike, each proposing their own theories about what happened to the scrolls and what they might contain. Some believe that the scrolls may have been scattered across the world, hidden in libraries, temples, or private collections. Others suggest that the knowledge contained in the scrolls was simply too dangerous to be preserved, and that they were deliberately erased from history. Yet, despite the numerous theories and investigations, the prophetic scrolls remain one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Were they truly lost in the destruction of the Temple of Serapis, or were they hidden away, waiting for the right time to be rediscovered? Did they contain knowledge so profound that it could change the course of history, or were they merely the musings of a forgotten group of priests? The answers remain elusive, hidden somewhere in the sands of time. As we continue our search for the truth, one question lingers in the air. What might we uncover if the prophetic scrolls were to surface today? And what, if anything, would they reveal about the forces that have shaped our world and continue to influence our future? The mystery of the missing scrolls is far from over. And perhaps, just perhaps, the world is still not ready for the knowledge they contain. As we continue our journey through history's most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries, we now turn our gaze to the mist-shrouded forests of ancient Gaul, where a group of wise and enigmatic people once thrived, the Druids. Revered and feared in equal measure, the Druids were not merely priests, but keepers of sacred knowledge, teachers of esoteric wisdom, and custodians of a deep spiritual connection with the natural world. Yet, despite their profound influence on Celtic society, the vast majority of Druidic wisdom has vanished, lost to the flames of time, conquest, and suppression. The forests of Gaul, vast, untamed, and dense with ancient oak trees, provided a fitting backdrop for the Druids, who viewed the natural world not just as a source of resources, but as a living, breathing entity with which they were intimately connected. Here, in sacred groves, the Druids conducted rituals that honored the gods and sought to tap into the cosmic forces they believed governed the universe. These groves, with their towering trees and hidden pathways, were more than just places of worship. They were portals to a deeper understanding of existence itself. It is within these groves that the Druids are thought to have imparted their most sacred teachings, teachings that were passed down orally from generation to generation. Unlike other ancient traditions, the Druids did not write down their knowledge. They believed that true wisdom could only be transmitted directly from teacher to student through a process that involved not just learning, but a deep spiritual initiation. This emphasis on oral tradition has made it nearly impossible to reconstruct their worldview with any certainty. We know what the Druids were believed to have taught, but the details remain frustratingly elusive. The lack of written records has led to a great deal of speculation. We know that the Druids were highly educated, with an intricate understanding of astronomy, medicine, law, and philosophy. They were deeply connected to the cycles of nature, observing the movements of the stars and the changing of the seasons with a precision that rivals modern science. They also had a sophisticated understanding of the human soul, believing that it was immortal and could traverse between the physical and spiritual worlds. One of the most mysterious aspects of Druidic belief was their view of the cosmos. The Druids did not see the universe as a cold, mechanical system. Rather, they viewed it as a living, interconnected web of forces that could be influenced through ritual and meditation. They believed that everything, from the stars in the sky to the plants in the earth, was imbued with a spirit or consciousness. This belief in the animistic nature of the world was at the core of their spirituality, and it set them apart from other ancient cultures. But what did the Druids know that has been lost to us? Some scholars have suggested that they had access to a deeper understanding of the natural world, knowledge that was far ahead of its time. The Druids' knowledge of astronomy, for example, may have been far more advanced than we previously thought. It is believed that they were able to predict the movements of the planets and stars with incredible accuracy, and some even speculate that they had an understanding of celestial phenomena that modern science is only now beginning to rediscover. Then there is the question of the Druidic connection to the sacred sites of Gaul. The most famous of these sites is perhaps the Stonehenge-like monument at Carnac, located in what is now Brittany, France. Thousands of standing stones, arranged in precise patterns, seem to point to a hidden order beneath the surface of the world. Were these stones part of Druidic rituals? And if so, what deeper meaning did they hold? Some have suggested that the Druids used these megalithic structures as astronomical instruments, carefully aligning them with the solstices and lunar cycles. Could these stones have been part of a larger cosmological map, one that connected the heavens with the earth? Despite the mysteries surrounding the Druids, much of what we know about them comes from the accounts of Roman historians and scholars who were often hostile to Druidic practices. The Romans, who viewed the Druids as both a political and religious threat, were determined to erase their influence. In 53 BC, the Roman general Crassus launched a campaign to eliminate the Druids, destroying their sacred groves and suppressing their teachings. By the end of the 1st century AD, the Druids had been all but eradicated, their knowledge hidden away or destroyed in the wake of Roman conquest. This destruction raises an unsettling question. What exactly did the Romans fear about the Druids' wisdom? The Romans were not a people easily intimidated by religious practices, so why was the Druidic tradition so dangerous to their empire? One possibility is that the Druids possessed knowledge, both spiritual and scientific, that threatened the Roman worldview. The Druids' intimate connection with the natural world and their belief in the interconnectedness of all things may have posed a challenge to the Roman system, which was rooted in hierarchy, power, and domination. But was the destruction of the Druids truly complete? While the Romans did their best to eradicate the Druidic tradition, there are hints that some of their wisdom may have survived. Some scholars believe that certain aspects of Druidic knowledge were passed down through secret societies, such as the Freemasons, whose rituals and symbols contain echoes of ancient Druidic teachings. Others suggest that the Druids' connection to the natural world and their understanding of the cosmic order may have influenced later mystical traditions, such as Gnosticism and alchemy. The truth is, we may never know the full extent of what the Druids knew. The Druidic tradition was deliberately concealed, its teachings passed down only to the initiated, and many of its most sacred secrets may have been lost forever. Yet, the legacy of the Druids continues to captivate our imaginations. The idea that these ancient sages held knowledge far beyond their time and that their wisdom was deliberately suppressed leaves us with more questions than answers. Could the Druids have known something about the nature of the universe that we still do not understand? Did they possess secrets of astronomy, physics, or even the human mind that were lost with their destruction? And, perhaps most intriguingly, is it possible that some fragments of this knowledge still survive, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? As we continue to dig deeper into the mysteries of the past, the question remains: what secrets might still lie buried in the ancient groves of Gaul, waiting for the world to rediscover them? The vanishing wisdom of the Druids may never be fully recovered, but its influence on the modern world, whether through hidden traditions or the reverence for nature and the cosmos, remains undeniable. The mysteries of the Druids endure, inviting us to wonder what they knew and what might still be waiting to be uncovered. As we shift from the mystical Druids of Gaul to yet another forgotten and elusive wisdom tradition, we now journey into the heart of one of the world's most desolate and unexplored landscapes, the Libyan desert. There, hidden among the vast, endless dunes and rocky outcrops, lies the secret history of the Libyan desert seers, a group whose knowledge and practices remain shrouded in mystery to this day. The Libyan desert, a place so remote and inhospitable, is often viewed as a barren wilderness, a vast sea of sand that stretches across North Africa. Yet, deep within this arid expanse, ancient wisdom once flourished. It is here, among the windswept plains and the towering cliffs, that the Libyan desert seers, often referred to as the oracles of the sands, held sway. Their system of divination and spiritual guidance, rooted in the natural world and the cosmic order, was both revered and feared. But what they knew, and how they knew it, remains one of history's great unsolved mysteries. The most enigmatic aspect of the Libyan desert seers was their oracle system, a complex, ancient practice believed to have been connected to the rhythms of the earth and the celestial bodies. Unlike the more familiar oracular systems of ancient Greece or Egypt, the Libyan seers did not rely on temples or formal rituals. Instead, their knowledge was derived directly from the desert itself, from the stars, the winds, and the cycles of nature. Their divinations were performed in the open, in the desert's vast emptiness, where they interpreted signs and omens from the environment around them. The seers would often gather at sacred locations, areas believed to be imbued with powerful spiritual energy. These sites, scattered throughout the Libyan desert, are not just locations of natural beauty, but places of great metaphysical significance. Ancient cave paintings and petroglyphs, which remain largely undeciphered, hint at the existence of a deeply symbolic map of the desert, one that the seers may have used to navigate both the physical and spiritual realms. These carvings are thought to represent cosmic alignments, planetary movements, and other celestial phenomena, suggesting that the Libyan desert seers had a sophisticated understanding of the heavens. But the true nature of the oracle system remains elusive. What we do know is that the seers were said to possess extraordinary abilities. Some claim they could predict the future with uncanny accuracy, while others suggest they could communicate with spiritual forces that dwelled in the desert's hidden corners. The most famous account of their practices comes from ancient texts, many of which have been lost or destroyed over the centuries. However, the fragments that remain offer tantalizing glimpses into their methods. According to the accounts of ancient travelers and explorers, the oracle system operated through a combination of observation, intuition, and deep knowledge of the natural world. The seers would observe the patterns of the wind, the movements of animals, the behavior of the stars, and the shape of the dunes. These seemingly ordinary elements were believed to be carriers of hidden messages, symbols from the universe that only the initiated could decode. The seers, through years of training and spiritual preparation, learned how to interpret these signs to provide guidance and foretell future events. One of the most striking features of the Libyan oracle system was its focus on the celestial. The seers believed that the stars were not just distant points of light in the sky, but living entities, each with its own consciousness and influence over the world below. The movements of the planets, the phases of the moon, and even the alignment of constellations were thought to have direct impacts on human affairs. It is said that the seers could predict significant events, like the rise and fall of empires or natural disasters, by reading the movements of the heavens. But what was the true source of their knowledge? Were they merely observing patterns that anyone could discern, or was there something more to their ability to read the stars? Some scholars suggest that the oracle system was deeply tied to an advanced form of astronomy that has since been lost to history. The seers may have had access to celestial knowledge that was far more advanced than what was known in the ancient world. Their understanding of the stars could have been based on a system of knowledge passed down from an even older civilization, one that existed long before the Greeks or Egyptians. Some even speculate that the Seers may have inherited their astronomical wisdom from ancient cultures such as those of Mesopotamia or Atlantis, though such theories remain highly speculative. Others point to the possibility that the Seers' knowledge was purely intuitive, an ability to tap into the hidden forces of nature and the cosmos through meditation, fasting, and ritual. The harsh desert environment, with its isolation and silence, may have provided the perfect setting for such practices. Could it be that the Seers, through deep communion with the desert's emptiness, reached an altered state of consciousness, one that allowed them to perceive hidden truths about the world and the universe? Were they, in essence, tapping into a hidden dimension of reality, one that ordinary people could not access? But despite these theories, there is little concrete evidence to explain the full scope of the Seers' abilities. Much of what is known about the Libyan desert oracles comes from the accounts of outside observers, many of whom were skeptical of their practices. The ancient Greeks and Romans, for example, were fascinated by the Seers, but dismissed them as mere charlatans or mystics. Their descriptions of the oracles often focus on the dramatic and supernatural aspects of their divinations, but they provide few details about the methods the Seers used. Even the archaeological record offers only fragmented clues. Some suggest that the Seers left behind hidden shrines or altars, but many of these have never been conclusively identified. The very remoteness of the Libyan desert makes it difficult for modern researchers to conduct thorough investigations into these potential sites. Moreover, the political instability in the region has made it dangerous for explorers and archaeologists to gain access to these areas, leaving the Seers' practices largely unexplored and their knowledge still hidden. What then did the Libyan desert Seers truly know? Was their oracle system a genuine form of divination? A spiritual connection to the cosmos that allowed them to glimpse the future? Or was it simply a sophisticated form of pattern recognition, honed through generations of living in harmony with the natural world? Could their celestial knowledge hold clues to a forgotten history of ancient astronomy, or might their insights have been based on something more mystical, something we can no longer comprehend? As we continue to peel back the layers of history's most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries, one thing is certain: the hidden oracle system of the Libyan desert. Seers remains a captivating enigma, a puzzle that may never be fully solved. Their knowledge, their methods, and the true extent of their abilities are lost to the sands of time, but the questions they raised continue to linger. What other secrets might the desert hold, waiting to be uncovered? And what, if anything, will it reveal about the forces that shaped the ancient world, and perhaps even the destiny of humanity itself? As we continue our exploration of history's most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries, we now find ourselves stepping into the shadowy world of ancient mathematical mysticism. In the heart of classical Greece, amidst the intellectual fervor of the 6th century BC, a group of thinkers known as the Pythagoreans sought to understand the very fabric of the universe through numbers. But what many don't know is that their philosophy was far more than just the study of mathematics. It was a deeply spiritual journey, one that blended numerical patterns with divine order, a fusion of the sacred and the rational. The true scope of their knowledge, however, remains tantalizingly out of reach. The Pythagorean Brotherhood, founded by the legendary mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras, was not just a school. It was a secretive and highly disciplined society, devoted to uncovering the hidden mathematical laws that governed the cosmos. The Pythagoreans believed that everything in existence, whether physical or metaphysical, could be explained through numbers. To them, numbers were not mere abstractions. They were divine principles, imbued with spiritual significance. The famous Pythagorean theorem is just one example of their mathematical discoveries. But what is less well known is the deeper, almost mystical dimension of their work. At the core of their teachings was a belief that the universe itself was constructed from harmonious numerical relationships. The Pythagoreans observed that musical harmony, for instance, was based on the ratio of string lengths, and they extended this concept to all aspects of existence. They believed that the same mathematical principles that governed music also underpinned the movements of the planets, the cycles of the seasons, and even the flow of time itself. But the true depth of their philosophical and mathematical mysticism, their most secretive teachings, remains largely lost to history. The Pythagorean inner circle, the core group of initiates within the Brotherhood, had access to knowledge that was carefully guarded and passed down only through oral tradition. This group of scholars was believed to have unlocked an understanding of the world that transcended mere geometry. They saw numbers as symbols that held the key to understanding the divine and the hidden structures of reality. Yet, despite their significant intellectual achievements, much of their work has been obscured by time, and even the most well-known aspects of their teachings are wrapped in layers of mystery. While we are familiar with the Pythagorean theorem and their geometric insights, there were deeper, more mystical aspects to their work that have been lost or deliberately hidden. Some scholars believe that the Pythagoreans developed a form of number-based meditation, using numerical patterns as a means of spiritual ascension. It is said that they engaged in complex rituals that involved the chanting of sacred numbers, the alignment of celestial bodies, and the contemplation of geometric forms, all in an effort to attain a higher state of consciousness. The numbers themselves were believed to be imbued with divine power, capable of transforming the mind and connecting the practitioner to the divine. One of the most fascinating, yet obscure, aspects of Pythagorean mysticism was their obsession with the number 10. The Pythagoreans viewed 10 as a symbol of completeness, representing the harmony of the universe. This number was so central to their worldview that it was called the tetractys, a sacred triangle formed by arranging the first four numbers in a specific pattern: 1, 2, 3, and 4. The sum of these numbers, 10, was seen as a key to understanding the structure of the universe. The tetractys was not only a symbol of mathematical harmony, but also of spiritual enlightenment. To the Pythagoreans, the act of contemplating the tetractys was a meditative process that brought one closer to divine wisdom. But the Pythagorean system was not limited to the study of numbers alone. They also had a profound interest in the mysteries of the soul and the afterlife. The Pythagoreans believed in the transmigration of souls, an early form of reincarnation, and saw life as a cycle of spiritual purification. This belief in the immortality of the soul was intricately connected to their understanding of numbers. They believed that through the correct use of numbers and geometric forms, one could purify the soul and transcend the limitations of the physical world. As the Pythagorean movement grew, its influence spread throughout the ancient world, but its esoteric teachings remained confined to a small group of initiates. By the 4th century BC, the Pythagorean tradition had begun to fragment. As more outsiders gained access to their teachings, the inner circle's most sacred knowledge was gradually diluted. The rise of the Roman Empire, along with the spread of other philosophical schools such as Stoicism and Platonism, eventually led to the decline of the Pythagorean Brotherhood. But even as the society dissolved, the essence of their mathematical mysticism lingered on, influencing later thinkers and even modern scientific discoveries. Despite the widespread recognition of Pythagoras and his contributions to mathematics, many of the deeper elements of his philosophy remain a mystery. Ancient texts and later interpretations have left us with fragments of the Pythagorean worldview, but the true scope of their mystical beliefs is still lost to history. Some suggest that the Pythagoreans may have left behind encoded texts, writings that were meant to be deciphered only by those who possessed the key to their numerical system. Could these texts still be hidden in some forgotten archive or private collection? And if they were rediscovered, what secrets might they reveal about the true nature of the universe? The idea that the Pythagoreans had access to a hidden mathematical wisdom that transcended their time is compelling. Their belief in the spiritual power of numbers, their connection to the divine, and their advanced understanding of geometry and astronomy suggest that they were on the verge of uncovering knowledge that could have reshaped our understanding of the world. But what happened to their most sacred teachings? Were they deliberately suppressed, lost in the chaos of history, or simply forgotten? There are those who believe that the mathematical mysticism of the Pythagoreans was not merely an intellectual pursuit, but a gateway to hidden knowledge that could illuminate the very structure of reality itself. Some modern-day mystics and researchers suggest that the Pythagorean system contained advanced principles of sacred geometry and cosmic order, waiting to be rediscovered. Could the hidden teachings of the Pythagorean inner circle still hold the key to understanding the mysteries of the universe? As we peer deeper into the ancient past, the lost mathematical mysticism of the Pythagoreans beckons. The answers may never be fully revealed, but the very possibility that they existed, hidden perhaps in plain sight, challenges us to reconsider what we know about the relationship between numbers, the cosmos, and the divine. What might still be hidden in the forgotten fragments of their teachings, and what might we yet uncover about the true nature of the world they sought to understand? The mystery endures, inviting us to ponder the unknown. As we move from the enigmatic world of Pythagorean mysticism to another shadowy corner of ancient history, we find ourselves in the Anatolian heartland, among the remnants of a civilization that has long captivated historians and archaeologists, the Hittites. In the windswept plains and rocky fortresses of ancient Anatolia, the Hittites forged a powerful empire that spanned much of the Near East. But alongside their military might and diplomatic prowess, there existed a hidden, almost forgotten legacy, one that revolved around the sacred libraries of the Hittite storm priesthood. The Hittites, known for their advanced legal codes, monumental architecture, and sophisticated metallurgy, also had a deeply spiritual society. At the heart of their religious practices stood the storm god, Tarhunt, a deity of thunder, rain, and war. His priests, the storm priesthood, held significant power and influence, overseeing rituals that were believed to maintain the balance of the cosmos and ensure the prosperity of the kingdom. But within the temples and sacred sites of these priests, it is said there existed libraries, repositories of divine knowledge and esoteric wisdom that have since been lost to the sands of time. These libraries, which were more than mere collections of written texts, contained sacred scrolls, tablets, and scrolls that held the secrets of the gods, the heavens, and the very forces that shaped the world. It is believed that the storm priesthood possessed ancient wisdom passed down through generations, hidden from the common people and preserved only for those who were initiated into the highest echelons of Hittite society. But today, these sacred libraries are lost, destroyed in the flames of war, swept away by the tides of history, and buried beneath the ruins of long-forgotten temples. Despite the centuries that have passed, the question remains: what knowledge did these libraries hold? What was contained in these sacred texts, and why was it deemed so dangerous or sacred that it was hidden away from the world? The most well-known of the Hittite temples that likely housed these libraries was the great temple complex at Hattusa, the capital city of the Hittite Empire. Hattusa, with its imposing city walls, intricate reliefs, and ancient archives, stands as a testament to the Hittites' religious and intellectual might. Yet, despite its significance, many of the sacred spaces within the city were destroyed over time. Archaeological excavations at Hattusa have uncovered vast amounts of cuneiform tablets, texts that offer glimpses into Hittite law, diplomacy, and religion. But among these findings, there are tantalizing references to the destruction of texts that were thought to belong to the storm priesthood, many of which have never been recovered. Historians know that the Hittites were among the first civilizations to use cuneiform writing, but the writings of the storm priesthood remain largely unknown. What we do know is that these priests possessed a unique and sophisticated understanding of divinity, nature, and the cosmos. They believed the storm god Tarhunt controlled not only the weather, but also the forces of creation and destruction. The rituals performed by the storm priests were believed to influence the natural world, ensuring bountiful harvests and military victories. And at the heart of these practices lay the mysterious texts stored within their sacred libraries. Some scholars speculate that the Hittite storm priests may have inherited their sacred knowledge from even older civilizations, perhaps those of Sumer or the ancient people of Mesopotamia. The early Mesopotamians were known for their advanced understanding of astrology, medicine, and mathematics, and it is possible that the Hittites, as a conquering force, absorbed some of this knowledge. Could the lost libraries of the storm priesthood contain references to ancient wisdom, practices, or scientific principles passed down from the earliest cultures of the ancient world? Yet, what is most puzzling about the destruction of these libraries is the possibility that it was not the result of a natural disaster or a random act of war. Rather, it appears that the destruction of the Hittite sacred texts was a deliberate act, one that was tied to the downfall of the Hittite Empire itself. In the 12th century BC, the Hittite Empire collapsed in the face of invasions from the Sea Peoples, as well as internal political strife. The fall of Hattusa, the capital, marked the end of the Hittite civilization. During this time of upheaval, it is believed that many of the sacred texts, including those held in the storm priesthood's libraries, were destroyed. The idea that these libraries were deliberately erased is a disturbing thought. Were the sacred texts too dangerous to be allowed to survive? Did they contain forbidden knowledge? Knowledge that the rulers of the Hittite Empire, fearing its power, decided to eradicate? Some have speculated that the destruction of these texts was not simply a matter of warfare, but part of a concerted effort to suppress the influence of the priesthood itself. If the storm priesthood held the key to controlling not just the elements, but the fate of the empire, could their knowledge have been seen as a threat to the stability of the ruling class? Yet, despite the apparent destruction of these sacred libraries, there is a possibility that some of their knowledge survived. Archaeologists have found references to divine rituals and texts in the surviving Hittite archives, and some of these may have been derived from the storm priesthood. But these fragments represent only a shadow of the full body of knowledge that was once contained within the lost libraries. What was truly lost in the flames of Hattusa? Was it merely a collection of religious texts, or was there something deeper at play? An understanding of the natural world, the cosmos, and the very forces of creation and destruction that governed the universe? One intriguing possibility is that the lost knowledge of the storm priesthood was not entirely erased. Instead, it may have been passed down in secret, hidden away by those who sought to preserve it. Some believe that the ancient wisdom of the Hittites, including their understanding of divine forces and their complex rituals, may have influenced later cultures, such as the Phoenicians and even the ancient Greeks. Could the influence of the storm priesthood's lost libraries be seen in the esoteric teachings of these civilizations, which also revered the connection between the heavens, the earth, and the divine? It is also possible that the surviving remnants of this lost knowledge are still buried somewhere, waiting to be uncovered. Hattusa, while extensively excavated, is far from fully explored. Could there be hidden chambers, lost temples, or undiscovered archives beneath the ruins of this ancient city. Archaeologists continue to search for signs of these lost libraries, but the harsh climate and complex nature of the site make excavation difficult. Could the day come when the mysteries of the storm priesthood are finally revealed? For now, the destruction of the sacred libraries of the Hittite storm priesthood remains one of history's great unanswered questions. What did these texts contain, and why were they considered so sacred? Were they truly lost in the fires of war, or was their destruction a calculated act to prevent the spread of forbidden knowledge? As we continue to search for answers, one thing remains clear. The mysteries of the Hittite storm priesthood and their sacred libraries are far from solved, and perhaps, just perhaps, the secrets they once held are still waiting to be uncovered. Continuing on our journey through the most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries of history, we now turn our gaze to the ancient deserts of the Middle East, a region whose dry, sun-baked expanses hide secrets that have long eluded our understanding. Among the many civilizations that flourished here, the Nabataeans stand out, not only for their mastery of trade, their awe-inspiring city of Petra, and their remarkable water management systems, but for a forgotten aspect of their culture, a sophisticated astronomical canon that has largely disappeared from the historical record. Nestled between the great trade routes that connected the Arabian Peninsula with the Mediterranean world, the Nabataeans were a people whose legacy was shaped as much by their strategic location as by their profound connection to the natural world. Their city of Petra, with its towering rock-cut tombs and intricate facades, remains one of the wonders of the ancient world. But less visible, though no less significant, is the role that the stars played in their daily lives. The Nabataeans, much like the other ancient cultures of the Near East, held a deep reverence for the heavens, seeing the night sky as both a guide and a source of divine wisdom. At the heart of this cosmic worldview was an astronomical system that, while complex and finely tuned to the rhythms of nature, has largely been lost to history. Little survives of the Nabataean astronomical canon, a system that some scholars believe was not merely a means of tracking time and seasons, but a deeply spiritual framework that connected the celestial with the terrestrial. What we know of it comes mainly from indirect sources, fragmented accounts, scattered references in Greek and Roman texts, and the surviving remnants of their temples and observatories. But the full scope of their astronomical knowledge, and the secrets it may have contained, remains tantalizingly out of reach. The most intriguing aspect of the Nabataean astronomical system is its integration with their religious practices. For the Nabataeans, the stars were not simply distant objects in the night sky. They were seen as active participants in the events of the world, with the power to influence human affairs. The Nabataean gods, many of whom were associated with celestial bodies, were believed to govern everything from the seasons to the prosperity of trade to the success of military campaigns. But how much of this knowledge was based on observation alone, and how much on something more mystical, remains unclear. What we do know is that the Nabataeans had a sophisticated understanding of celestial movements. The region in which they lived, today's Jordan, southern Syria, and parts of Palestine, lies in a part of the world where the stars are particularly bright and visible. The clear desert skies would have offered an ideal environment for stargazing, and archaeological evidence suggests that the Nabataeans took full advantage of this. Some of their temples and sacred sites were built with remarkable astronomical precision, suggesting that they may have used the stars as markers for important dates and rituals. At Petra, the Nabataean capital, there are structures that align with celestial events, such as solstices and equinoxes, indicating that the Nabataeans were aware of the seasonal cycles and the position of the sun at different times of the year. In one such temple, the so-called Temple of the Sun, the entrance is aligned with the sunrise on the winter solstice, pointing to a deep connection between their religious rituals and the natural cycles of the heavens. It is believed that such alignments were not simply for symbolic purposes, but were part of a much larger, sophisticated system of celestial observation and worship. Yet, despite this evidence, much of the actual practice of Nabataean astronomy remains speculative. Did they have a detailed system of star maps, as the Babylonians did? Or did they rely on more intuitive forms of celestial divination, using the patterns of the stars to guide their decisions in matters of trade and war? Scholars remain divided, with some suggesting that their astronomical knowledge was more practical, focused on navigation and agriculture, while others believe that it was more esoteric, tied to a deeper understanding of the cosmos and its spiritual significance. One of the more mysterious elements of Nabataean astronomy is the potential link between their star worship and the phenomenon of sacred geometry, a concept that appears in many ancient cultures. Sacred geometry involves the belief that certain geometric shapes and proportions are intrinsically connected to the divine order of the universe. Could the Nabataeans, like the Egyptians and the Greeks, have embedded these geometric principles into their astronomical system? Could the alignment of their temples with celestial events have been designed not only for practical purposes, but as a way to tap into the cosmic forces they believed governed the world? Adding another layer to the mystery is the possibility that the Nabataeans may have passed their astronomical knowledge down in secret. Despite their prominence in the ancient world, very little of their written language has survived. What we do know of their script comes primarily from inscriptions on tombs and trade routes, but it seems that the sacred and esoteric knowledge of the Nabataeans may have been reserved for a select few. Could their astronomical canon have been hidden away, intentionally erased by the forces of empire, or was it lost through time due to the collapse of their civilization? The decline of the Nabataean kingdom came in the 2nd century AD, when it was absorbed into the Roman Empire. With the shift in power came a change in religious practices, and the importance of the Nabataean gods and their celestial connections began to fade. As Roman influence spread, the temples and sacred sites of the Nabataeans were abandoned, and their intricate astronomical knowledge was buried under the sands of history. Perhaps some remnants of their knowledge survived in the margins of Roman texts, or the later astronomical systems developed by cultures like the Arabs and Byzantines. But these fragments offer little more than a glimpse of what the Nabataeans truly understood. One of the most intriguing questions is whether the knowledge of the Nabataeans was integrated into other ancient traditions. The influence of Babylonian and Persian astronomy, for example, can be seen in later systems of star mapping and astrology, but could the Nabataeans have had an impact on these cultures as well? Or was their knowledge lost forever when their kingdom fell? As we look to the future, the question remains, can we ever recover the forgotten astronomical canon of the Nabataeans? Despite the efforts of archaeologists and historians, much of their knowledge remains elusive, hidden within the ruins of Petra and other sacred sites scattered across the desert. The remnants of their temples and observatories provide tantalizing evidence of their deep connection to the stars, but without the texts or teachings that once accompanied these structures, we are left to wonder what more they may have known. Could the lost wisdom of the Nabataeans be waiting to be uncovered, hidden in the arid sands, or will it remain one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries? The lost astronomical canon of the Nabataeans stands as a silent testament to a civilization whose wisdom was intimately tied to the stars. It beckons us to wonder, what did they see in the heavens? And what celestial knowledge did they uncover? Knowledge that could have shaped the course of their world, and perhaps still holds the key to understanding our own. The mystery, like the desert sky itself, remains vast and uncharted. As we journey deeper into the hidden realms of history's most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries, We now turn to the enigmatic world of ancient religious cults, specifically the secretive and fascinating cult of Mithras. This mysterious, astral religion, which thrived in the Roman Empire, remains one of the most elusive and captivating of all ancient spiritual systems. The rituals and teachings of the Mithraic cult were shrouded in secrecy, passed down through initiations and veiled in symbolism, and what little we know about them only adds to the intrigue. The Mithraic temples, or Mithraea, which can still be found buried beneath the earth in places like Rome, Persia, and across the far reaches of the empire, offer tantalizing clues about the cult's practices. These underground sanctuaries, carved from stone and adorned with astrological symbols and elaborate frescoes, were the sacred spaces where the followers of Mithras gathered to engage in secret rites. What was it about this god, Mithras, the Persian god of light, truth, and cosmic order, that inspired such devotion? And what exactly took place within these dark, subterranean chambers? The most famous and puzzling aspect of the Mithraic religion is the Astral initiation, a secret process through which initiates ascended through different levels of spiritual enlightenment. These levels were represented by various stages of initiation, each symbolized by a specific animal and a cosmic phenomenon. The initiation rituals were deeply tied to astrological concepts and the movements of the stars, drawing on the belief that the cosmos itself was an active, divine force that could influence human life and destiny. Mithras himself was associated with the sun, and many of the cult's rites centered around celestial phenomena, particularly the cycles of the sun and stars. At the core of Mithraic worship was the belief that the god Mithras had slain the sacred bull, a symbolic act that represented the triumph of light over darkness, good over evil, and order over chaos. But what did this act mean in a deeper, spiritual sense? And why were the followers of Mithras so deeply drawn to the stars? The Mithraea, the temples dedicated to Mithras, were often located in the bowels of the earth, beneath buildings or within caves, reinforcing the cult's deep connection to the hidden, esoteric world. The initiates would descend into these subterranean chambers as part of their spiritual journey, where they would undergo a series of trials and rituals meant to transform them. These included purification rites, the consumption of symbolic foods, and encounters with cosmic imagery. The initiates were not only being initiated into the cult itself, but were, in a sense, being initiated into the mysteries of the cosmos. The Mithraic initiations were organized into 7 levels, each representing a different stage of spiritual ascent. These levels, each associated with an astrological sign or celestial phenomenon, were intended to mirror the initiates' progress in understanding both the divine and their place in the universe. As the initiates advanced through these stages, they were exposed to increasingly secret and profound teachings about the nature of the cosmos, the gods, and the soul's journey. At the highest level of initiation, the initiate was thought to gain direct knowledge of the universe's hidden forces and the spiritual realms beyond. Could this knowledge, concealed for so long, have included ancient truths about the nature of reality, the hidden dimensions of the universe, or the deeper laws that govern existence? Were these teachings more than just religious beliefs, but a form of celestial science, an ancient understanding of astronomy and astrology that could reveal the true workings of the cosmos? The role of the stars in Mithraic worship is particularly intriguing. The initiate's journey mirrored the movements of the stars themselves. The most famous image associated with Mithras is the Tauroctony, the depiction of Mithras slaying the bull. This image is not just a symbolic act, but is believed to align with specific celestial events, particularly the movement of the constellations. In the night sky, the stars of the bull's constellation, Taurus, and the nearby constellations were thought to hold cosmic significance for the initiates, marking moments of spiritual enlightenment and transformation. Many scholars believe that the Mithraic cult was influenced by Zoroastrianism, the ancient Persian religion that held Mithras as a prominent deity. Zoroastrianism itself was highly concerned with cosmic order and the balance between light and darkness, and this worldview deeply permeated Mithraism. Could the Mithraic rituals have been an attempt to tap into ancient cosmic knowledge passed down from the Persians and other cultures of the ancient Near East? What celestial truths might they have uncovered that we are only beginning to explore today? Despite the wealth of archaeological evidence we have, intricate frescoes, elaborate carvings, inscriptions, and even the remains of the Mithraea themselves, many aspects of the Mithraic cult's teachings remain a mystery. The secrecy surrounding the initiation process was absolute. Only a few fragments of Mithraic texts have been recovered, and these provide only the barest hints of the deeper meanings behind the rituals. Some scholars have suggested that the Mithraic initiations involved a form of spiritual rebirth, with the initiates being symbolically born again as they moved through each level of initiation. This process was thought to bring them closer to the divine, enabling them to access higher realms of consciousness. One of the most intriguing aspects of Mithraism is its potential connection to other ancient mystical traditions. It's possible that the Mithraic initiation system drew from or influenced other religions and esoteric practices of the time. The parallels between Mithraic rituals and later secret societies, such as the early Christian Gnostic traditions, suggest that some of these ancient astronomical teachings may have been preserved, albeit in a different form. Could the Mithraic understanding of the cosmos and the soul have influenced the rise of Christianity or other philosophical systems that emerged in the Roman Empire? As we dig deeper into the mystery of the cult of Mithras, the question remains: what was the true nature of the astral initiations? Were they simply symbolic rituals of spiritual ascent, or did they contain a hidden astronomical and astrological knowledge that remains to be discovered? Could the Mithraic teachings have revealed something far beyond mere religious dogma, a deeper, more profound understanding of the cosmos and our place within it? The cult of Mithras remains one of the most intriguing and enigmatic religious movements in ancient history. While its rituals and teachings have been largely erased from the historical record, the remnants of its existence speak volumes about the human desire to connect with the divine through the stars and the heavens. As we continue to explore the mysteries of this secretive cult, the question still lingers: what did the initiates of Mithras truly learn beneath the earth in the hidden chambers of their temples? And what, if anything, might still be waiting to be uncovered in the ancient archives and forgotten rites of this lost celestial religion? The answers may yet lie buried in the darkness, awaiting those willing to seek them. As we shift from the mysteries of the cult of Mithras to yet another unexplained chapter in the history of ancient philosophical traditions, we now find ourselves in the heart of ancient India, where a forgotten school of thought once rivaled the most well-known schools of philosophy. The Ajivikas, a sect of wandering ascetics and thinkers who flourished during the 5th and 4th centuries BC, held beliefs and teachings that, though once influential, have largely been lost to history. Among these teachings, some scholars believe, lay a cosmological system so profound and mysterious that it may have unlocked secrets of the universe that have yet to be rediscovered. The Ajivika philosophers, led by their enigmatic founder, Macaulay Gosala, proposed a worldview that was radically different from the more well-known schools of Indian thought, such as the Buddhists or the Jains. While those traditions focused on ethics, liberation, and the pursuit of knowledge, the Ajivikas focused primarily on a cosmology of cycles and determinism, suggesting that the universe operated under unchangeable natural laws. Their teachings, however, have mostly vanished, leaving behind only a few scattered references in the works of their contemporaries and later critics. To understand the mystery surrounding the Ajivikas, we must first explore what we know of their cosmological ideas. The Ajivikas were deeply concerned with the nature of the cosmos, the cycles of life and death, and the forces that govern the universe. They believed that everything in existence, including human actions, followed an inescapable, preordained path. This belief in determinism was central to their philosophy. Everything, from the rise and fall of empires to the path of individual souls, was governed by an unchanging cosmic law. In this way, they viewed the cosmos as a vast, interconnected web of events and phenomena, all of which were part of an eternal, cyclical process. One of the most intriguing aspects of Ajivika cosmology was their concept of the eternal cycle of existence. Unlike other Indian philosophies that saw the cycle of life and death as something that could be transcended through enlightenment, the Ajivikas believed that this cycle was a permanent, immutable feature of existence. There was no escape from the wheel of fate, no liberation from the forces that governed the cosmos. This deterministic view of the universe stood in stark contrast to the Buddhist and Jain ideas of karma and liberation, which focused on individual agency and the possibility of breaking free from the cycle of rebirth. At the heart of the Ajivika system was the idea that the universe operated according to the laws of time, space, and natural forces that were beyond human control. This view was expressed through their belief in a concept known as niyati, a principle of fate or predestination. According to the Ajivikas, all beings were subject to the laws of niyati, and no matter how hard they tried, they could not escape the course that had already been set for them. This cosmic determinism was a concept that bordered on fatalism, and it has led some scholars to wonder whether the Ajivikas possessed a deeper understanding of the mechanics of the universe, an understanding that has since been lost. But what makes the teachings of the Ajivikas so tantalizing is not just their view of the cosmos, but the suggestion that they may have had access to an advanced form of cosmological knowledge, one that was in tune with the very fabric of reality. The ancient texts that reference the Ajivikas often mention their profound understanding of the universe and the natural world. Could they have uncovered an early form of what we now consider astronomical or scientific knowledge? Were the Ajivikas privy to an understanding of cosmic forces that transcended the limits of their time? The mystery deepens when we consider the disappearance of the Ajivika tradition. Despite their prominence in ancient India, the Ajivikas seem to have faded into obscurity, and their teachings were gradually overshadowed by the rise of Buddhism, Jainism, and later Hinduism. Some scholars argue that the decline of the Ajivikas was due to the growing popularity of these competing philosophies, which offered more optimistic views of life and the potential for liberation. But others suggest that the Ajivikas may have been deliberately suppressed. Could their cosmological knowledge have been seen as a threat to the established religious order of their time? Was their deterministic worldview too radical for the more spiritually oriented philosophies that followed? The most perplexing part of the Ajivika mystery is the fact that much of their teachings have been lost. Very little of their literature has survived, and most of what we know about their ideas comes from the writings of their detractors. For example, the Buddhist texts often criticize the Ajivikas for their rigid determinism and fatalistic outlook, while other sources suggest that the Ajivikas were seen as a powerful and influential sect during their peak. The lack of surviving texts leaves us with only fragments of their philosophy, hints and glimpses that suggest there was much more to their cosmology than we can currently reconstruct. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Ajivikas was their apparent focus on astrology and astronomy. The few surviving references to their teachings suggest that they may have had an advanced understanding of the stars and the movements of celestial bodies. The Ajivikas believed that the cosmos was governed by a divine cosmic law that was reflected in the movements of the stars and planets. Could their cosmological system have been based on a sophisticated form of astrology, one that saw the heavens as an integral part of the human experience? Were their teachings tied to a deeper understanding of the universe's structure, perhaps even offering insights into the fundamental forces of nature that we are still struggling to comprehend today? Some scholars have speculated that the Ajivikas may have been in possession of astronomical knowledge that was far ahead of their time. In particular, their understanding of the cycles of time and the predictability of natural events suggests that they may have been observing the stars with a precision that rivals modern scientific methods. If the Ajivikas truly understood the cosmic order in such detail, then why did their teachings fade into obscurity? Could the knowledge they possessed have been deliberately hidden, lost over time, or simply forgotten? What then did the Ajivikas truly know about the universe? Was their cosmic determinism based on a deeper, empirical understanding of natural laws? Did they possess ancient astronomical insights that have been lost to the world? The few references to the Ajivika tradition that remain raise more questions than answers, and the mystery of their cosmological teachings continues to perplex scholars and historians alike. As we continue to search for clues about this lost tradition, one question remains at the forefront. What hidden knowledge about the cosmos did the Ajivikas once possess, and what might it have revealed about the forces that shape our universe? With so much still obscured by time, their forgotten wisdom may still hold the key to understanding the cosmos in ways we have yet to discover. As we move from the teachings of the Ajivikas to another perplexing corner of the ancient world, we find ourselves in the heart of the Levant, where the remnants of a civilization as old as time itself continue to stir the imagination of explorers and scholars alike. Here, in the modern-day town of Baalbek in Lebanon, stand the colossal ruins of a temple complex that has baffled historians for centuries, the Temple of Jupiter, once the largest religious structure of its kind in the ancient world. But beneath the grandeur of the temples and the engineering marvels that have survived the ages lies a mystery that stretches far beyond the architectural feats we can see today. It is a mystery that connects these ruins to the ancient priests of Baalbek and their lost, hidden knowledge. Baalbek was not just a place of worship. It was a center of profound spiritual and astronomical significance. The temple complex, dedicated to the god Jupiter, towers over the surrounding landscape with its immense stones and intricate carvings. What draws attention to this site, however, is not just its grandeur or its role in the Roman world. Rather, it is the ancient knowledge that was believed to have been preserved and passed down through the priests who tended to these sacred grounds. These were the priests of Baalbek, whose teachings and rituals have largely been lost to history. What we do know is that the temple site was believed to hold secrets that could unlock the mysteries of the cosmos and the divine, hidden within the alignment of the stars and the very stones that formed the foundation of the temple. The scale of Baalbek's architectural wonders is nothing short of awe-inspiring. The great stones, some weighing over 800 tons, remain standing today, seemingly defying the understanding of how such massive blocks could have been moved and placed with such precision in an era before modern engineering. These massive stones, known as the trilithon, form part of the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter, and their sheer size has led many to wonder how the ancient builders accomplished such a feat. Were these stones moved by an unknown form of ancient technology? Or was there something more at play? An understanding of natural forces or spiritual knowledge that enabled the construction of such monumental structures? One possibility that has intrigued researchers and mystics alike is that the builders of Baalbek were in possession of advanced knowledge that we have long since forgotten. The precision with which the temple was constructed, the alignments to celestial bodies, and the intricate carvings that adorn the site suggest that the ancient priests of Baalbek may have had access to a form of sacred knowledge tied to the cosmos itself. It is believed that the temple was not just a place of worship, but also a site of astronomical observation, where the movements of the stars and planets were carefully tracked and studied. Some scholars have suggested that the ancient priests of Baalbek had an advanced understanding of the stars, perhaps a knowledge that was passed down through generations of priests who studied the heavens in ways that modern scientists have only begun to understand. The alignment of the temple to specific celestial events, such as the solstices and equinoxes, suggests that the priests of Baalbek were keenly aware of the relationship between the earth and the stars. But could there have been even more profound astronomical knowledge hidden within the sacred site? Knowledge that has yet to be uncovered. As we delve deeper into the mysteries of Baalbek, one thing becomes clear. The site's significance was not merely physical, but spiritual. The priests who served at Baalbek were said to have practiced rituals that were designed to align human existence with the divine forces of the cosmos. These rituals were likely based on an understanding of cosmic order, a belief that the universe itself was a reflection of divine will, and that the movements of the stars and the planets were manifestations of higher, unseen forces. Could these rituals have been designed to harness the power of the stars, guiding the lives of the faithful and the rulers who sought the favor of the gods? The connection between Baalbek and celestial knowledge is further strengthened by the fact that the site was dedicated to Jupiter, the king of the Roman gods, and a deity associated with the heavens and the sky. Jupiter was seen as the god who ruled over the celestial realm, and it is likely that the priests of Baalbek viewed the temple as a bridge between the earth and the heavens, a place where the earthly and divine realms intersected. If the priests believed that the gods communicated through the stars, then it stands to reason that the temple's construction and alignment were intended to facilitate this divine communication. But the most intriguing aspect of the Baalbek mystery is the suggestion that the lost knowledge of the priests may have been intentionally suppressed or hidden. As the Roman Empire expanded and Christianity began to take hold in the region, many of the ancient temples and religious practices were abandoned or repurposed. Could the knowledge that the priests of Baalbek held have been seen as a threat to the new religious order? Were the astronomical and spiritual teachings of the priests of Baalbek deliberately erased, or did they simply fade into obscurity with the passage of time? There is a tantalizing possibility that the priests of Baalbek were not simply performing rituals for the sake of worship, but were tapping into an ancient cosmic understanding that was once known by other great civilizations. The possibility that the knowledge contained within the temple was based on principles of sacred geometry, advanced astronomy, or even energy manipulation raises the question, what did the ancient priests truly understand about the cosmos, and what might they have known about the forces that govern the universe? As we continue to study Baalbek, new theories and hypotheses continue to emerge. Some suggest that the site may have been an ancient observatory, with the massive stones serving as markers for celestial events. Others propose that the site was designed as a sort of cosmic power center, where the energies of the earth and the stars were harnessed to influence the fate of the kingdom. Could the priests of Baalbek have known how to manipulate these energies, using their understanding of the cosmos to shape the world around them? Despite centuries of study, the true purpose of Baalbek remains a mystery. The massive stones, the precise alignments, and the sacred rituals point to a lost knowledge, one that could have changed the course of history had it survived. But much of this knowledge has been lost to time, leaving only fragments and hints of what once was. Could the lost temple knowledge of Baalbek still be buried beneath the ruins, waiting to be rediscovered? Or has it been hidden away forever, its secrets lost in the shifting sands of time? As we ponder these questions, the mystery of Baalbek continues to haunt us. What was the true purpose of the temple, and what cosmic wisdom did the priests once hold? Perhaps the answers are still waiting to be uncovered, hidden deep within the stones, the alignments, and the echoes of a long-forgotten world. The lost temple knowledge of Baalbek remains one of the most captivating and elusive mysteries of the ancient world, inviting us to wonder what secrets may still lie buried beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. As we journey further into the labyrinth of history's most disturbing and unbelievable mysteries, we now find ourselves in the desolate, sun-scorched landscapes of ancient Mesopotamia, where once a thriving and enigmatic people, known as the Iranian Sabians, stood as custodians of an ancient lunar-based religious and cosmological tradition. The Sabians, whose name has become synonymous with the mystery of the moon, inhabited the city of Harran in what is now modern-day Turkey. Their city, situated at a strategic crossroads of trade and culture, became a center for learning, mysticism, and astronomical observation. But what is most perplexing about this once flourishing civilization is not the remnants of their city or their contributions to early science. It is the mysterious lunar traditions they practiced, which have, to this day, largely vanished from the historical record. Harran was more than a city. It was a sacred center, intricately connected to the cycles of the moon and the stars. Ancient texts, both Islamic and early Christian, refer to the Sabians as a distinct religious group. Their belief system was one deeply rooted in celestial observation, particularly lunar worship. But what is most unsettling about the legacy of the Iranian Sabians is not just their reverence for the moon, but the almost complete disappearance of their sacred lunar mysteries and the teachings that once permeated their society. What happened to this rich knowledge of the moon's cosmic role in their worldview? Could it have been suppressed, lost to time, or even deliberately erased? The ruins of Harran today are a testament to a once great civilization, its structures slowly crumbling beneath the weight of centuries. Yet, despite the passage of time, the remnants of the Sabians' knowledge, tied intimately to the moon, still resonate in the shadows of history. The Sabians believed that the moon was more than just a celestial body. It was a divine force, a link between the earthly and the heavenly, whose cycles influenced everything from agriculture to the soul's journey through the cosmos. Much of what we know about the Sabians comes from accounts written long after their decline, primarily from early Islamic scholars, who sometimes viewed them through a lens of suspicion or misunderstanding. They were often described as astrologers and star worshippers, accused of practicing forbidden forms of divination. However, these accounts do not fully capture the depth of their lunar traditions or the sophisticated cosmic understanding that the Sabians may have possessed. This leads us to wonder, what did these lunar mysteries truly entail, and why have they been relegated to the margins of history? One of the most intriguing aspects of the Iranian Sabians was their astronomical knowledge. The city of Harran, like other ancient centers of learning, was renowned for its scholars, who carefully observed the movements of the moon and stars. The Sabians held that the moon governed the rhythms of time, the ebb and flow of life, and even the very fate of the individual. It was believed to be an intermediary between the gods and humankind, a role often filled by the moon in ancient religious systems. But the Sabians took this belief to an entirely different level. They did not merely observe the moon, they sought to align themselves with its cycles in profound and spiritual ways. Rituals were likely performed at specific lunar phases, and sacred knowledge passed down from generation to generation. One of the more mysterious aspects of their lunar worship is the suggestion that they may have understood the moon's role in ways that went beyond simple observation. Did the Sabians possess a deeper, hidden knowledge about the moon's movements, one that tied their cosmology to the very fabric of the universe itself? Was there something more to their lunar mysteries, a form of cosmic wisdom that has since vanished from the historical record? The Sabians' lunar beliefs seem to have been connected to a broader, more universal system of cosmology. They viewed the moon not just as a celestial body, but as part of a greater cosmic harmony. Their teachings likely included complex astrological systems, possibly akin to those practiced in ancient Babylon or Egypt, which aligned the movements of the stars and planets with earthly events. However, what makes the Sabians unique is their focus on the moon as the central cosmic force, one that dictated not only the cycles of nature, but also the very structure of the soul. Could the Sabians have developed a form of lunar astrology that connected personal destinies with the phases of the moon, creating a spiritual framework that guided their actions in life? While their lunar-based practices and beliefs have long since faded, the Sabians left behind subtle clues that hint at their deeper understanding of the cosmos. The city of Haran itself was home to observatories and temples dedicated to the moon, with architectural alignments that suggest the careful observation of celestial events. Could these structures have been designed not only for religious worship, but as instruments of astronomical observation? Did they serve as portals to a deeper cosmic understanding, a way for the Sabians to commune with the divine forces of the universe? Evidence of these connections remains scarce, but the very presence of such structures raises the question: what was the true purpose of these temples, and what knowledge did they contain? Another layer of mystery surrounds the fate of the Sabian lunar traditions. The destruction of Haran in the early medieval period, and the subsequent rise of Islam, marked the beginning of a cultural shift that would erase many of the ancient practices associated with the Sabians. The lunar mysteries they once held so dear became intertwined with forbidden knowledge, and their teachings faded into obscurity. Were these teachings deliberately suppressed, lost in the pages of history, or simply overshadowed by the rise of new religious systems? The Sabians' lunar traditions may have been intentionally obscured by later historians who viewed their practices as pagan or heretical. In the early Islamic period, there was a concerted effort to stamp out what was seen as idolatry, and many ancient practices were swept away or reinterpreted. The lunar mysteries, once central to Sabian thought, were relegated to myth and legend. Were the deeper meanings of their lunar worship truly understood by those who followed them, or were these practices distorted beyond recognition over time? Could there be hidden records or knowledge, still buried in the sands of Haran or the pages of ancient manuscripts, that hold the key to unlocking the true extent of their cosmic wisdom? As the centuries have passed, the lunar mysteries of the Haranian Sabians have become just that, mysteries. The knowledge they once held, once perhaps so vibrant and alive, now exists only in fragments, mentioned in passing by scholars and chroniclers who may not have fully understood its depth. What, if any, fragments of this forgotten cosmology remain? Could some of their celestial wisdom have found its way into other esoteric traditions, or was it entirely erased from history? The mystery of the disappeared lunar teachings of the Haranian Sabians invites us to wonder: what profound truths about the moon, the stars, and the universe did they once know, and what might still be hidden within their lost knowledge? The lunar mysteries, once whispered beneath the shadow of the moon, continue to haunt the imagination, leaving us with a lingering question: will we ever fully uncover the secrets they left behind, or are they lost forever, like the light of a distant star that fades before we can touch it? As we leave behind the lunar mysteries of the Haranian Sabians, we now turn our gaze to another ancient culture, whose enigmatic religious and philosophical practices have confounded scholars for centuries. Deep in the heart of Nubia, nestled between the Nile's serpentine curves, lies the ancient city of Napata, a once thriving metropolis of the Kushite kingdom. It was here, in the shadow of the towering temple of Amun, that a unique and long-forgotten solar philosophy took root among the Kushite priesthood, a belief system that aligned the cosmic rhythms of the sun with the divine order of the universe. The teachings of the Kushite priests remain a tantalizing mystery, hidden beneath layers of time and history. But the fragments we have suggest that their solar philosophy held knowledge that might have shaped not just their civilization, but the entire region. Napata, once the spiritual heart of the kingdom of Kush, was a place where the boundaries between the divine and the mortal were perceived as thin, even permeable. The city itself was built in the shadow of the Great Pyramids, and the temples dedicated to the gods were said to be more than mere places of worship. They were powerful loci of cosmic energy. The Kushites, inheritors of ancient Egyptian wisdom, revered the sun as the most vital of cosmic forces, its energy both the sustainer of life and the ultimate symbol of divine power. But as with so many ancient beliefs, the deeper philosophical aspects of their solar worship remain shrouded in obscurity. We know that the Kushite priesthood at Napata held an intimate, almost esoteric understanding of solar cycles and their significance in the grand cosmic order. The sun was not only viewed as the giver of life, but also as a symbol of the eternal journey of the soul, rising and setting in a cycle that mirrored the rhythms of human existence. Yet, the Kushite solar philosophy seems to have been more than just a religious expression. It was a guide to understanding the nature of the cosmos itself. At the core of this solar philosophy was the belief in Ra, the sun god, as a central force in both the physical and metaphysical worlds. However, the Kushites are believed to have diverged from the Egyptian model, incorporating their own understanding of the sun's role in the universe. While the Egyptians saw Ra as a singular, all-powerful god, the Kushites viewed him as part of a greater cosmic dance, a force that worked in harmony with the stars, the earth, and the very souls of the living. This intricate interplay between cosmic forces is hinted at in the writings and inscriptions that have survived from Napata, though much of the deeper meaning has yet to be fully understood. The Kushites were skilled astronomers, and their knowledge of the sun's movements was so advanced that it likely influenced not only their religious practices, but also their agricultural calendar and the architecture of their temples and pyramids. The alignment of their sacred sites with solar phenomena, such as solstices and equinoxes, points to a highly sophisticated understanding of the sun's power. But could there have been a hidden layer to their solar philosophy, one that sought to harness the energy of the sun for purposes beyond mere worship or agriculture? The most compelling and mysterious aspect of the Kushite solar philosophy is its possible connection to the concept of spiritual enlightenment and transformation. The priests of Napata, as custodians of this knowledge, may have understood the sun as more than a physical object in the sky. To them, it may have represented a spiritual force, capable of illuminating the soul and guiding it on its journey through life and death. The sun, in this context, was not just a source of light, but also a symbol of the divine wisdom that could lead the soul to eternal life. What is most perplexing, however, is the lack of surviving texts or records from the Kushite priesthood that could explain the full scope of their solar philosophy. What little we do know about their religious practices comes from scattered references in ancient Greek and Roman texts, as well as from later Egyptian accounts. These sources suggest that the Kushites were highly secretive about their sacred knowledge, even from their contemporaries. Could the solar philosophy of the Kushite priesthood have been deliberately kept hidden, passed down only through oral traditions or within the most sacred inner circles of the priesthood? The lack of written records makes it difficult to piece together the exact nature of their beliefs. But there are tantalizing clues in the architecture and artwork that survive from their time. The pyramid tombs of the Kushite kings, like those at Meroe, are intricately aligned with the solar cycles, suggesting that the Kushites viewed their kings as living intermediaries between the sun and the people. Could these kings have been seen as solar deities themselves, whose lives were meant to mirror the path of the sun through the sky? The solar symbolism is pervasive in Kushite art, with images of the sun god Ra frequently depicted in the form of a disk, radiating rays that represent divine illumination. These rays may have been a metaphor for the knowledge that the priests sought to unlock, knowledge that connected them to the cosmos in ways that modern minds can barely comprehend. What is even more intriguing is the possibility that the Kushites may have understood the sun's energy not just in spiritual terms, but also in more practical ways, perhaps even harnessing solar energy for the benefit of their civilization. Could the solar temples at Napata and elsewhere have been more than mere religious sites? Some researchers have suggested that these temples, with their precise alignments and geometric structures, could have served as places of astronomical observation, where the priests monitored the sun's movements to predict agricultural cycles or even to measure the passage of time in ways that we have yet to fully grasp. Did the Kushite priesthood possess knowledge of solar phenomena, such as solar flares, sunspots, or other celestial events, that was far ahead of its time? While the Egyptians were renowned for their astronomical expertise, the Kushites may have taken this knowledge even further, using it to unlock hidden truths about the universe and the nature of existence. If they did, this knowledge has remained largely lost to us, with only fragments of their solar philosophy surviving in the ruins of Napata and the cryptic remnants of their sacred rituals. As we continue to explore the mysteries of ancient cultures and their understanding of the cosmos, the Kushite solar philosophy stands out as one of the most elusive and intriguing. What did the priests of Napata truly understand about the sun, and how did they use this knowledge to guide their civilization? Could there be hidden texts or undiscovered artifacts that reveal more about their solar teachings? Or is the full extent of their wisdom lost forever, buried beneath the sands of time, leaving us only with tantalizing glimpses of what might have been? The mystery of the Kushite solar philosophy remains unsolved, but as with so many other ancient secrets, it invites us to look deeper into the heavens, into the ruins, and into the hidden corners of history itself. We now find ourselves shifting focus from the sunlit mysteries of the Kushite priesthood to the shadowed realms of shamanic traditions. This next journey takes us into the vast, windswept steppes of Central Asia, where the early Turkic tribes once roamed, nomads whose belief system and mystical practices have left behind fragments of what might have been one of the most profound and esoteric traditions in human history. The shamanic sky journey of the early Turkic peoples remains one of the most elusive and mysterious practices of the ancient world. It was a tradition of spiritual transcendence, a belief that the soul could soar beyond the boundaries of the earth and into the celestial realms, guided by the spirits of nature and the cosmos itself. But like so many ancient practices, it has vanished from the historical record, leaving only cryptic traces and unanswered questions. The early Turkic tribes, emerging from the vast regions stretching from the Altai Mountains in the east to the Caspian Sea in the west, were deeply connected to the natural world. For them, the earth, the sky, and the stars were all part of a unified cosmic system, a web of interconnected forces that guided their lives. In the heart of this belief system was the figure of the shaman, a spiritual intermediary who could traverse the realms of reality and spirit, entering altered states of consciousness through ritual, dance, and prayer. It is in these altered states that the shaman would embark on what is known as the sky journey, a transcendental voyage to the heavens, where they sought guidance from celestial beings, ancestors, and the natural forces that governed their world. While much of what we know about the Turkic tribes' shamanic practices is shrouded in mystery, there are hints that their sky journeys were not merely metaphorical, but involved a deep, profound experience of communion with the cosmos. This journey was believed to take place beyond the material world, in a realm where the shaman's soul would ascend to meet the divine spirits and forces of nature. These sky journeys were likely facilitated by rituals that involved drumming, chanting, fasting, and the use of sacred plants, all aimed at inducing a trance-like state in which the shaman could leave their physical body behind and soar into the heavens. One of the most intriguing aspects of these shamanic sky journeys was their connection to the stars and celestial bodies. The Turkic tribes, like many nomadic peoples, had an intimate relationship with the night sky. The vastness of the steppes and the clarity of the stars offered them a window into the cosmos, an endless, shimmering expanse that seemed to stretch beyond the horizon. The stars, for the Turkic shamans, were not distant objects of scientific curiosity, but living entities, celestial spirits that held the keys to wisdom, guidance, and even the fate of their people. It is said that the shamans would embark on their sky journeys to seek knowledge of future events, guidance on important tribal matters, or even to communicate with the spirits of deceased ancestors. These journeys may have been tied to specific celestial events, such as eclipses, meteor showers, or solstices, which were seen as moments of great spiritual significance. The shamans would use these moments to align their own spirits with the cosmic forces at play, seeking answers that could shape the course of their people's lives. But despite the evidence suggesting a rich, complex tradition of shamanic sky journeys, very little has survived from the Turkic people's ancient belief system. Most of what we know about their practices comes from the accounts of outsiders, primarily Chinese and Persian historians, who viewed the Turkic tribes through a lens of cultural curiosity or suspicion. These accounts provide glimpses of the Turkic shamans' rituals, but are often vague and fragmented, leaving many unanswered questions about the exact nature of their sky journeys. What is especially frustrating is the scarcity of direct evidence. Unlike the well-documented religious practices of the Egyptians or Mesopotamians, the Turkic sky journey tradition has left behind few physical artifacts or texts. Archaeological evidence from the Turkic tribes is sparse, and most of the early records that might have detailed their shamanic practices have been lost to time. What we do have are enigmatic references in historical texts, a few surviving oral traditions, and an occasional carved figure of a shaman draped in fur holding a drum, symbols of a lost world of spiritual transcendence. Could the key to understanding these vanished sky journeys lie buried in the myths and legends of the Turkic people? There are stories that speak of shamans who could summon the winds, control the elements, and even ascend to the heavens on the back of a celestial horse. These tales may hold the seeds of a deeper truth about the shamanic practices of the early Turkic tribes. Were the shamans truly able to travel beyond the earth and into the stars? Or were these stories metaphorical expressions of an inner, psychological journey? Some researchers speculate that the Turkic sky journeys were connected to early forms of astral projection or out-of-body experiences. In these altered states, the shamans may have believed they could separate their spiritual essence from their physical bodies, allowing them to travel freely in the heavens. Could they have been accessing higher realms of consciousness, tapping into hidden dimensions of the mind that we are only beginning to understand today? Or were these experiences purely spiritual in nature, designed to help the shaman communicate with the divine and unlock the secrets of the cosmos? The idea of shamanic journeys into the heavens is not unique to the Turkic tribes. Similar traditions can be found among other ancient peoples, from the Native American tribes of the Great Plains to the Siberian shamans of the far north. These cross-cultural similarities suggest that the practice of sky journeys might have been a common thread woven through the spiritual traditions of nomadic and tribal cultures. Yet, the Turkic tradition remains uniquely elusive, its deeper meaning slipping through the cracks of history. Could there be hidden records or forgotten artifacts that might shed more light on the shamanic sky journeys of the Turkic people? Some believe that the secrets of these journeys might be encoded in ancient Turkic texts, scrolls, or even the carvings found on ancient stones and monuments. But if these records exist, they have yet to be discovered or decoded. The question remains, what, if anything, can we still learn from these lost traditions, and will the mysteries of the Turkic sky journey ever be fully revealed? In the end, the vanished shamanic sky journey tradition of the early Turkic tribes leaves us with more questions than answers. The practice, deeply rooted in the spiritual fabric of the Turkic peoples, seems to have been as much about communion with the cosmos as it was about self-discovery. And though we have only the faintest traces of its existence, these traces suggest that the Turkic shamans understood something profound about the nature of reality, the soul, and the universe. As we continue to search for the secrets of their sky journeys, we are left to wonder, what knowledge did they hold, and what might still be hidden in the windswept steppes, waiting to be uncovered? As we journey from the far-flung steppes of Central Asia to the mystical landscapes of ancient Greece and its neighboring regions, we now find ourselves at the doorstep of one of the most enigmatic and ancient traditions of healing, one that entwines the sacred with the physical, the mind with the body. The temples dedicated to Asclepius, the god of medicine, were not just places of worship. They were sanctuaries where healing miracles were said to occur, where the divine and the human met in a strange, sacred dance. But what most people do not know is that behind these revered temples lay a lost healing doctrine, a system of medicine and spiritual practice that has almost completely disappeared from historical records. What we are left with are fragmented accounts and curious remnants that raise as many questions as they answer. The most famous of these healing temples was the Temple of Asclepius at Epidaurus, situated in a tranquil valley surrounded by lush forests and mountains in the northeastern corner of the Peloponnese in Greece. The location itself seems almost intentionally chosen. This serene and natural environment, combined with the temple's grand architecture, suggests that these temples were places of deep, almost mystical significance. Here, the sick would come from all corners of the ancient world in search of cures, miracles, and divine intervention. But the healing rituals that took place in these temples were far more complex and mysterious than simple prayers or incantations. These rituals, which combined elements of physical medicine with spiritual purification, were believed to access some form of divine wisdom that transcended the boundaries of the human mind and body. Visitors to the Temple of Asclepius would often enter into a process of purification and preparation that could last several days. They would fast, sleep in the temple's halls, and engage in rituals designed to bring them into a heightened state of awareness, one that allowed them to commune with the god of healing. It was during this sleep, often called incubation, that the healing process truly began. The sick would lie on the floors of the temple, perhaps surrounded by inscriptions or sacred symbols, hoping for a divine visitation in their dreams. It was in these dreams that Asclepius, or his priests, would allegedly appear, providing guidance, diagnosis, and even direct cures. But the true nature of this healing doctrine remains shrouded in mystery. While the physical cures documented in ancient texts are well known, many of which seem almost miraculous by modern standards, what about the spiritual healing that underpinned these practices? The doctrines of the Asclepian temples seem to suggest that the mind and spirit were just as important in healing as the body itself. Could the treatments offered in these temples have involved a sophisticated understanding of psychology, energy healing, or even early forms of what we might now call placebo effects? It is also worth considering whether the temples were designed to induce states of consciousness that allowed patients to access deeper layers of their own subconscious, a practice not unlike modern therapeutic techniques such as hypnosis or guided imagery. The idea of the healing dream itself is a central, but often overlooked, part of the Asclepian tradition. This phenomenon has raised questions about the interplay between the mind and the body. In the ancient world, it was common to believe that the gods communicated with humans through dreams, offering them guidance and wisdom. But could these dreams have been more than just divine messages? Could they have represented a form of deep psychological processing, a way for the subconscious mind to address the ailments of the body? Or were the priests of Asclepius simply masters of psychological suggestion, using the power of the mind to heal the physical body in ways we can only begin to understand today? This connection between mind and body in the Asclepian healing doctrine suggests that the ancient Greeks might have possessed a deeper, more holistic understanding of health than we often give them credit for. Some modern scholars even speculate that the healing practices of the Asclepian temples may have included elements of psychotherapy, methods that allowed the sick to confront hidden traumas or psychological conflicts that manifested as physical ailments. Could this ancient doctrine have anticipated modern holistic healing practices, which emphasize the importance of both mind and body in health and recovery? Yet, despite the significance of these temples and their healing methods, the full extent of the lost healing doctrine remains unknown. The temple at Epidaurus was just one of many that spread throughout the ancient world, from Greece to Asia Minor, Egypt, and even as far east as Persia. In each of these locations, the practices were similar but unique, incorporating local customs, beliefs, and even medical knowledge. But the overarching theme of divine healing, where the physical and the spiritual were seamlessly integrated, appears to have been central to all of them. What is perhaps most puzzling is the lack of written records that might have explained the full depth of the Asclepian healing system. Ancient texts describing the rituals, the spiritual processes, and the exact methods used by the priests are either fragmented or entirely absent. Were these practices purposefully hidden from the public eye, reserved only for the initiated few? Or were they lost with the fall of these temples, as religious and cultural shifts overtook the ancient world? We do know that the spread of Christianity and the decline of the pagan temples led to the eventual closure of the Asclepian sanctuaries, which were seen as places of heathen superstition by the new Christian authorities. As a result, much of the esoteric knowledge that these temples may have possessed was either destroyed or suppressed. Could the sacred knowledge of the Asclepian priests have been intentionally erased from history, swept away by religious and political forces that viewed these ancient practices as a threat? Or did the knowledge simply fade away, replaced by the more rational approaches of later medical traditions? The mystery only deepens when we consider the possibility that the Asclepian healing practices may have been more advanced than even their practitioners realized. Was the power of the healing dream tied to an understanding of the unconscious mind that would not be rediscovered until centuries later in the work of Freud or Jung? Could the ancient healing doctrine have anticipated some of the psychological principles that we now use to treat mental and emotional conditions? If so, why has this knowledge remained so elusive, hiding behind the veil of mythology and mystery? The healing temples of Asclepius, with their fusion of divine intervention and human psychology, offer us a glimpse into a lost world of medicine and spirituality. But despite the wealth of surviving evidence of these ancient practices, we are still left with a haunting uncertainty. What exactly did these temples teach, and what secrets of healing did they possess that we have yet to uncover? Perhaps the true wisdom of the Asclepian priesthood remains hidden, waiting to be rediscovered, offering insight not just into ancient medicine, but into the deeper, often elusive connection between mind, body, and spirit. Having unraveled the mysteries of healing doctrines and celestial journeys, we now shift our gaze once again to the vast expanse of the sky, where another ancient culture, far removed from the lands of Europe and the Middle East, cultivated its own intricate and secretive understanding of the stars. We turn to the Polynesian wayfinders, a group of seafarers who, long before the arrival of modern navigation tools, used only the stars, the wind, and the sea to chart their voyages across the vast Pacific Ocean. These navigators, often regarded as some of the greatest explorers in human history, navigated tens of thousands of miles, often to far-flung and seemingly unreachable islands. But what remains most fascinating about their journey is not just their skill in using the stars to guide them, but the deeper, almost mystical star lore that they carried. A lore so sacred and enigmatic that in many ways it remains locked away from modern understanding. The Polynesian Islands are scattered across a vast expanse of ocean, with some of the most isolated territories on Earth. Yet, despite their geographical isolation, the Polynesians were not isolated in their knowledge. They mastered the art of navigation without the aid of maps or compasses, instead using a system of star lore that transcended simple astronomy. This knowledge was not merely a tool for navigation. It was a sacred system intertwined with the culture, beliefs, and spirituality of the Polynesian people. The stars were not just distant lights in the sky. They were the ancestors themselves, the spirits that guided the wayfinders on their perilous journeys. At the heart of this star lore was the concept of the star compass, a unique method used by the Polynesians to orient themselves while at sea. This star compass was not a physical object, but rather a mental map, a mental construction that guided navigators as they crossed the ocean. It was built upon the positions of the stars and constellations, which were used to create invisible lines or paths that stretched across the sky. The wayfinders would memorize these paths and use them to steer their canoes across the open ocean. But this was more than just a method of travel. It was a spiritual practice, one that tied the navigator to the heavens themselves. There are numerous accounts of Polynesian wayfinders who, using nothing but the stars, could navigate with astonishing accuracy. One of the most famous examples is the voyage of the Hokulea, a traditional Polynesian double-hulled canoe, which sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti in 1976, using only traditional navigation methods. Despite the challenges posed by the vastness of the ocean, the crew of the Hokulea navigated successfully, demonstrating the profound depth of Polynesian star lore. Yet, even with such remarkable feats of navigation, much of the knowledge that made these voyages possible remains hidden from us. Why is it that, despite their incredible success, much of the Polynesian wayfinders' star lore has been lost to history? To begin to understand this mystery, one must first delve into the sacredness of the knowledge. The Polynesians were deeply spiritual people, and their understanding of the stars was tied to their religious beliefs. The stars were seen as manifestations of divine forces, ancestors, gods, and spirits, that guided them not only in their physical journeys, but also in their moral and spiritual lives. The constellations and stars were assigned names that reflected these spiritual relationships. For example, the star Rigel in the constellation Orion was known to the Polynesians as Te Ahiahi, the evening star, while the cluster of stars known as the Pleiades was referred to as Te Waka Orangi, the canoe of the heavens. These stars were more than just astronomical bodies. They were symbols, each with its own story and significance. But there is a troubling gap in our understanding of this star lore. Though much of the knowledge was passed down orally, with each generation of navigators learning the stars and their meanings from their elders, much of this sacred lore was not written down. Why was this essential information that allowed the Polynesians to successfully navigate the most treacherous oceans, kept in oral tradition? One possible explanation is that the sacred nature of the star lore made it something to be protected, hidden from outsiders, and preserved for those deemed worthy to know it. The secrecy surrounding the lore was not merely for practical reasons. It was a cultural imperative, ensuring that only the initiated could access such powerful knowledge. Could this secrecy have played a role in why so much of it was lost over time, especially as external influences began to erode traditional Polynesian ways of life. The mystery deepens when we consider that Polynesian navigation techniques, while awe-inspiring, were never shared with the outside world for centuries. When Europeans first began to explore the Pacific in the 16th and 17th centuries, the Polynesians were already skilled wayfinders, yet their knowledge of the stars and navigation remained largely concealed. Were the Polynesian navigators protecting this wisdom from colonial powers, or did they see it as something that could only be truly understood by their own people? If so, how much of that knowledge remained hidden, passed down in secret, safeguarded by the Polynesian priesthood and the most skilled navigators? Intriguingly, there is a suggestion that Polynesian wayfinding may have been connected to an even older, more universal system of star lore, one that stretched across many ancient cultures. Some researchers have pointed to similarities between Polynesian star patterns and those of other ancient civilizations, from the Egyptians to the Mesopotamians. These connections hint at the possibility that a more universal system of celestial navigation and spiritual understanding existed, one that was shared by disparate cultures around the world. Could it be that the Polynesians were not only preserving their own sacred star lore, but also a forgotten legacy of ancient wisdom that had once been common to many? If this knowledge was shared across cultures, how much of it has been lost, obscured by time and the rise of more modern ways of thinking? The question remains: what other mysteries lie within the Polynesian star lore that we have yet to uncover? Are there deeper, hidden meanings behind the stars that the Polynesians understood and that we still have not fully grasped? Could there be ancient texts, lost to history, that contain the keys to unraveling the full depth of Polynesian celestial knowledge? And if we did recover these teachings, what might we learn about the spiritual and psychological connection between humanity and the cosmos? As we stand beneath the stars ourselves, gazing upward, we can only wonder, what might still be hidden within the vast ocean of knowledge that the Polynesian wayfinders once held? And could it still guide us today if we are willing to listen? As we leave behind the navigational mysteries of the Polynesian wayfinders, we now shift our focus to a different kind of celestial knowledge, one that is intimately tied to the earth, the cycle of life, and the deep spiritual connection between the human and the divine. Hidden within the heart of ancient Anatolia, in what is now modern-day Turkey, the Phrygian mother cult worshipped a goddess whose influence extended far beyond mere religious ritual. The Phrygians believed that the goddess, Cybele, the Great Mother, held the power not only to create and sustain life, but to communicate with her followers in ways that transcended the physical world. Perhaps the most fascinating and mysterious aspect of this cult were the secretive dream oracles, through which the goddess was believed to speak directly to her devotees, offering guidance, foretelling the future, and even healing the soul. But what were these dream oracles, and how did they connect to the broader spiritual and cultural life of the Phrygians? More importantly, why have they remained so elusive, their practices veiled in secrecy and largely forgotten by history? The Phrygian temples dedicated to Cybele were grand and imposing, constructed in strategic locations where nature and divinity could blend together. One of the most significant sites was the Temple of Cybele at Pessinus, an ancient city that was once a major center of Phrygian worship. It was here, among the sacred groves and winding rivers, that the Phrygians believed they could access the divine realm. The sanctuary itself was designed to be a portal between worlds, a place where the material and spiritual intersected. The followers of Cybele believed that the goddess's influence extended to all aspects of life: agriculture, fertility, protection, and, most intriguingly, dreams. For the Phrygians, the act of dreaming was not merely an unconscious activity, it was a sacred experience through which the divine could directly intervene in their lives. Dreamers would enter the temple or sacred space to seek guidance, often fasting and purifying themselves before lying down to sleep in the hopes of receiving a message from the goddess. It was believed that Cybele could communicate her will through vivid and sometimes cryptic dreams, which were then interpreted by the priestesses of the cult, who were trained to decipher the messages of the gods. But what did these dreams truly reveal? Were they simply symbolic reflections of the dreamer's own thoughts and desires, or were they true divine revelations, capable of guiding the individual in matters of great spiritual or personal importance? The mystery surrounding the dream oracles lies not just in the content of the dreams, but in the very nature of their occurrence. The Phrygian mother cult is one of many ancient religious traditions that utilized dreams as a tool for divine communication, but what sets the Phrygian practice apart is the intensity with which it was believed that the goddess Cybele could invade the consciousness of her followers. Some accounts suggest that the dreams were so vivid, so detailed, that the dreamers believed they had actually traveled into another realm, a spiritual plane where the boundaries of time and space no longer applied. Could these dream journeys have been a form of shamanic experience, where the soul left the body to interact with the divine? The role of the priestesses, often called Pythias in many cultures, was crucial in interpreting these dream messages. But what exactly were they interpreting? Some scholars speculate that the dream oracles of the Phrygian mother cult were tied to a much broader and more complex system of esoteric knowledge, a kind of mysticism that combined ancient rituals with a deep understanding of the human psyche. Could the Phrygians have known more about the nature of the unconscious mind than we give them credit for? Did the priests and priestesses possess a system of dream analysis akin to modern-day psychoanalysis, yet developed thousands of years before Freud and Jung? This line of thought leads us to an unsettling question. Were these dreams mere glimpses into the spiritual realm, or did they serve a more practical purpose, perhaps as tools for social control? The Phrygian mother cult was known for its powerful influence over its followers, and the dream oracles may have been one of the ways in which this control was exerted. Dreams, after all, are deeply personal, and the interpretation of such experiences can guide an individual's thoughts and actions in profound ways. If the priestesses could accurately or convincingly interpret a dream, the believer would naturally take that interpretation to heart. In this sense, the dream oracles could have served as both a source of divine wisdom and a tool for social cohesion, keeping the followers aligned with the will of the goddess and the temple hierarchy. As we look deeper into the role of dreams in ancient religious practices, it's important to consider how other cultures viewed dreams as divine messages. From the Egyptian dream books to the Greek and Roman prophetic dreams, it seems that the Phrygians were part of a much larger tradition in the ancient world, one in which dreams were considered an integral part of religious life. But what makes the Phrygian dream oracles so unique is the specific connection to Cybele, a goddess whose powers were not merely of life and death, but also of the boundary between the earthly and the divine. In some ways, Cybele's connection to dreams seems to suggest that she was a goddess not just of fertility and nature, but of hidden knowledge, the knowledge that could only be accessed through altered states of consciousness, such as those induced by sleep. So why, then, have these sacred dream practices been lost to time? The rise of Christianity and the decline of polytheistic religions marked a significant turning point in the ancient world, and with it, many of the mystical traditions, such as the dream oracles, were suppressed or forgotten. It is possible that the secretive nature of the Phrygian mother cult, combined with its eventual collapse, meant that much of this sacred knowledge was lost or deliberately hidden from history. Even as the remnants of the Phrygian civilization were absorbed into the Roman Empire, the true meaning and significance of the dream oracles may have remained shrouded in secrecy, passed down only through esoteric circles or lost altogether. Could it be that the mysteries of the Phrygian mother cult and their dream oracles remain hidden because we are still not equipped to understand them fully. Modern psychology, with its deep exploration of the unconscious mind, might offer us the tools to unlock some of the secrets behind the Phrygian dream oracles. Perhaps the sacred rituals of the Phrygian priestesses, their ability to interpret and guide through dreams, were not as primitive as they may seem. Could these ancient dream practices offer insight into our own unconscious desires and fears, just as they once guided the souls of the Phrygians? The mystery of the Phrygian dream oracles, like many other lost practices, continues to invite speculation. The sacred and secret nature of these dream journeys makes it difficult to separate truth from myth, reality from ritual. But as we reflect on these ancient mysteries, we can't help but wonder, what could the Phrygians have known about the nature of dreams and the spirit world that we have yet to discover? And what of the knowledge they may have kept hidden, perhaps forever, within the sanctuaries dedicated to Cybele, waiting for a future generation to unearth? As we shift our focus from the dream oracles of the Phrygian mother cult, we now turn to an entirely different mystery, one that stretches across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, where an ancient civilization once navigated the world using a celestial map that remains to this day largely unknown. We are talking about the Lapita navigators, the seafaring peoples who, long before the age of European exploration, successfully charted and settled the islands of the Pacific, from Fiji to Tonga, Samoa, and even beyond, into the remote reaches of the Polynesian Triangle. These navigators possessed an intricate and profound understanding of the stars, the tides, and the ocean's rhythm, which allowed them to travel across thousands of miles of open sea. Yet, despite their remarkable achievements, much of their cosmological knowledge, which may have guided these voyages, has disappeared. What was the true nature of their oceanic cosmology, and why have we been unable to fully uncover it? The Lapita culture, known primarily for its distinctive pottery and early settlements in the vast expanse of Oceania, emerged around 1600 BCE, and its influence spread across the Pacific over the next few centuries. These early voyagers were not just skilled seafarers, they were deeply connected to the oceans, islands, and stars that guided their journeys. From the time they left the coastlines of Southeast Asia, they sailed into the unknown, establishing intricate trade routes and creating permanent settlements on some of the most remote islands on Earth. But while the material evidence of their presence, in the form of pottery, tools, and remnants of ancient villages, is relatively abundant, the intellectual and cosmological framework that underpinned their navigation techniques remains tantalizingly out of reach. What makes this mystery so compelling is the fact that the Lapita navigators, like other ancient seafarers, had no maps, no compasses, and no modern navigational instruments. Instead, they relied on a sophisticated understanding of the stars and the ocean itself, using both to navigate their way across vast distances. But what exactly did their cosmology look like? How did they perceive the relationship between the earth, the sea, and the heavens? And why have we, despite our best efforts, been unable to fully decode this lost knowledge? It's important to note that the Lapita navigators were not simply sailing from one island to another. They were essentially mapping the stars in a way that was unique to their culture. This celestial map was not written down or preserved in a linear fashion, but was passed down through oral traditions and memory, woven into the very fabric of their culture. The stars were not just objects in the sky, they were guides, deities, and markers of the cosmic order. Much like other ancient cultures, such as the Egyptians and the Babylonians, the Lapita people likely used the stars to create a kind of sky calendar, one that synchronized the cycles of the stars with the seasons, tides, and the rhythms of the ocean. This calendar was crucial for navigation, as it allowed the voyagers to determine when it was time to sail, when to expect storms, and when to settle on new lands. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Lapita cosmology is the possibility that they saw the ocean itself as a kind of celestial mirror. The waves, currents, and winds could have been viewed as reflections of the stars above, and the act of navigating across the ocean could have been seen as a way of traveling through a celestial realm. This idea is further supported by the fact that many Pacific Island cultures, including the Polynesians, believed that the heavens and the earth were deeply interconnected. The stars were not just distant, inert objects. They were part of a living, breathing cosmos that directly influenced the lives of those below. Could the Lapita navigators have viewed their voyages as a sacred journey across both the physical and spiritual realms, where they were guided by a celestial order that was as real as the ocean itself? The lack of written records poses a significant challenge to understanding the full depth of Lapita cosmology. What we know about their navigational practices comes primarily from the traditions of later Pacific Islanders, particularly the Polynesians, who inherited much of the navigational knowledge of their ancestors. The Polynesians, like the Lapita people before them, used the stars to guide their voyages, relying on a system of constellations and the movement of the stars to navigate the open ocean. However, it is unclear whether the star charts and navigation techniques used by the Polynesians were identical to those of the earlier Lapita people, or whether they represented an evolution of that knowledge over time. If the Lapita navigators possessed a unique system, one that was lost before written records could preserve it, then what else might we be missing about their cosmological worldview? One theory suggests that the Lapita people may have used an advanced form of celestial cartography, an intuitive mental map of the stars that was passed down orally and never recorded in writing. In this model, the stars would have been arranged in a series of interconnected paths or routes, each one tied to specific islands, currents, or seasons. The challenge for modern researchers, however, is that the system was never documented in a way that could be easily reconstructed. It's possible that the knowledge was fragmented over time, lost as the Lapita people's culture evolved and their territories expanded. As different Polynesian islands were settled, the nuances of the original cosmology could have been altered or forgotten, even as the basic principles of star navigation were retained. Another intriguing possibility is that the Lapita navigators' star lore was linked to a broader network of ancient oceanic cultures. The connections between the Pacific Islands, Southeast Asia, and even the shores of the Americas have long been the subject of speculation. Some researchers have suggested that the Lapita people were not isolated in their navigational knowledge, but were part of a much larger tradition of maritime cultures that spanned vast distances. Could the Lapita's cosmological system have been part of a broader oceanic worldview, one that connected far-flung civilizations through a shared understanding of the stars, the tides, and the rhythms of the sea? The disappearance of the Lapita navigators' oceanic cosmology is a mystery that remains unsolved. Despite the evidence of their voyages, their advanced seafaring skills, and their remarkable achievements, much of their knowledge has been lost. What remains are fragments, the pottery they left behind, the faint traces of their settlements, and the oral traditions of later cultures who may have inherited pieces of their wisdom. But the true depth of their cosmology, the way they saw the world and their place in it, remains hidden. As we look to the stars, we can only wonder what secrets lie within the celestial maps of the Lapita navigators. What cosmic knowledge did they possess, and why has it remained so elusive? Could there be more to the story of these ancient voyagers than we've yet uncovered? What might still be hidden beneath the surface of the ocean, waiting to be discovered? As we transition from the navigational mysteries of the ancient Lapita people, we now turn to a culture that once thrived on the fringes of ancient Europe, a civilization steeped in profound spiritual rites, whose most sacred knowledge has since vanished into the mists of time. We journey eastward, to the land of the Thracians, whose secrets remain hidden beneath layers of history, their sacred rituals obscured by centuries of silence. Among the many mysteries of the ancient world, few are as elusive as the initiation teachings of the Zalmoxian cult. This mysterious group, dedicated to the god Zalmoxis, once held a profound understanding of the afterlife, spiritual transcendence, and the path to immortality. But what exactly did their initiations entail? Why is it that their sacred rites, which promised enlightenment and divine wisdom, have largely been forgotten by history? The Thracians, a people who once inhabited the lands of modern-day Bulgaria, Romania, and parts of Turkey, were known for their fierce warriors and rich cultural heritage. Yet, beneath their martial prowess lay a deep and complex spiritual tradition, one that connected them to the divine in ways that few of their contemporaries could understand. At the heart of this spiritual tradition was Zalmoxis, a god who was said to have transcended the physical realm, rising to a divine state of immortality. The cult of Zalmoxis was not just a religion, it was a way of life, one that sought to unlock the deepest mysteries of existence through secret initiations. We begin our exploration of the Zalmoxian cult in the highlands of Thrace, where ancient temples dedicated to Zalmoxis once stood. These temples, often hidden in remote locations, were places of immense spiritual significance. Archaeological excavations in these regions have uncovered remnants of these sanctuaries, revealing the complex architecture of the sites and the remains of the rituals that once took place within their walls. In these sacred spaces, initiates would undergo a series of rites designed to bring them closer to the god Zalmoxis and ultimately to immortality. But what were these rites? While much about the Zalmoxian initiation process remains shrouded in mystery, a few key aspects have survived through the writings of ancient historians. The Greek philosopher Herodotus was one of the few to mention the cult of Zalmoxis in his writings, describing it as a religion that promised its followers an afterlife free from fear and suffering. Herodotus claimed that the Thracians believed Zalmoxis, a former slave of Pythagoras, had ascended to the divine realm, where he now served as an intermediary between the living and the dead. According to Herodotus, the initiates of the cult believed that through rituals and spiritual purification, they could become immortal like Zalmoxis himself. However, these glimpses into the cult's practices are brief and unspecific. The true nature of their initiation rituals remains elusive, partly due to the fact that the Thracians did not leave behind written records of their spiritual practices. Much of what we know about the Zalmoxian cult comes from second-hand accounts, primarily from Greek and Roman historians, whose understanding of the cult was likely colored by their own cultural perspectives. So, what did these initiations look like? How did the Zalmoxians communicate with their god? And what insights did they gain from their sacred rituals? One theory is that the initiations involved a form of symbolic death and resurrection, a spiritual journey into the underworld, followed by a return to the world of the living. This idea is supported by the belief that Zalmoxis himself had died and been resurrected, embodying the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In some traditions, it was believed that initiates would undergo a sacred death, a ritual where they would lie in a state of trance or unconsciousness, believed to represent their journey to the afterlife. While in this state, they would experience visions or receive divine messages from Zalmoxis, which would offer them guidance for their lives and prepare them for the ultimate return to the divine. Could the initiation process have involved the use of psychoactive substances or other techniques to induce altered states of consciousness? The exact methods remain unknown, but many scholars suggest that the Zalmoxians might have used sensory deprivation, fasting, or rituals that mimicked death to create a transformative experience for the initiate. As we explore further, it becomes apparent that the Zalmoxian teachings likely drew from a much broader spiritual tradition. Many of the concepts found in the Zalmoxian cult The belief in immortality, the journey to the afterlife, and the transformative power of initiation are also central themes in other ancient mystery religions, such as those of Egypt and Greece. Some researchers suggest that the Zalmoxians were part of a larger spiritual network that spanned the ancient world, where initiates underwent similar trials and experiences. Could it be that the Zalmoxian cult, with its belief in immortality and spiritual transcendence, was connected to other mystery schools in the Mediterranean and beyond? Could the teachings of Zalmoxis have been a part of a shared spiritual heritage, one that linked the Thracians to distant civilizations in Egypt, Persia, and even Greece? While such ideas are intriguing, they remain speculative, and we are left with more questions than answers. For example, why was this rich body of knowledge so carefully guarded? The secrecy surrounding the Zalmoxian initiations suggests that they were meant for only a select few, those deemed worthy of receiving the god's wisdom. This secrecy may also explain why so little has survived about their rituals. Could it be that, as other cultures began to dominate the region, the Zalmoxian teachings were deliberately suppressed? As Christianity spread across Europe and replaced many of the older belief systems, the knowledge of these ancient initiations may have been erased or hidden. Could there be remnants of this forgotten wisdom still buried in the ruins of ancient Thracian temples, waiting to be uncovered? Another question that lingers in the mind is how much of the Zalmoxian legacy survived within later cultures. The Thracian culture was eventually absorbed into the Roman Empire, and over time, their religious practices were blended with those of the Romans and other neighboring cultures. Did any traces of the Zalmoxian teachings persist in the religious or philosophical traditions of later civilizations? Some scholars have pointed to the influence of the Zalmoxian cult on later mystery religions, such as the Mithraic cult, which shared certain themes of death and resurrection. Could the Mithraic mysteries have drawn from the Zalmoxian tradition, adapting its teachings to a new cultural context? Ultimately, the mystery of the Zalmoxian cult and its lost initiation teachings remains one of the most compelling and frustrating puzzles of ancient history. The fragments of knowledge we have suggest that the Thracians possessed a deeply sophisticated understanding of life, death, and the cosmos. But the full scope of their beliefs remains hidden from us. As we continue to search for answers, one can't help but wonder, what might still be buried beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered? And what secrets of the Zalmoxian cult, lost to time, may one day emerge, offering us a glimpse into the spiritual wisdom of a long-forgotten civilization? As we move from the enigmatic Zalmoxian teachings in Thrace, we now venture into a deeply obscure corner of ancient Greek thought, a realm that existed not in the light of day, but in the dark embrace of night itself. We turn our attention to the Greek Nyx mysteries, a lost philosophical tradition that revolves around the goddess Nyx, the primordial deity of night, whose very name evokes a sense of mystery, shadow, and hidden knowledge. These mysteries, once practiced in the shadowy temples and groves of ancient Greece, promised to reveal truths about the nature of existence, consciousness, and the cosmos, truths that were bound to the power of the night. Yet, like so many ancient teachings, the secrets of the Nyx mysteries remain largely veiled, their full meaning lost to the passage of time. Nyx, the personification of night, was one of the earliest gods in Greek mythology. She was born from chaos, the void that existed before the creation of the cosmos, and was said to have given birth to various personifications of dark forces: Hypnos, sleep; Thanatos, death; and Moros, doom, to name just a few. Nyx herself was often depicted as a shadowy, all-encompassing figure, cloaked in darkness, her form so immense that she was said to stretch across the entire sky, covering the earth in her eternal night. In many ways, Nyx represented not just the physical night, but also the conceptual forces of darkness. those aspects of existence that are hidden from view, inaccessible to human understanding. But the mystery of Nyx does not end with her role in mythology. It is the secret philosophical teachings associated with her that intrigue us most, the lost night philosophy that once held sway over a small but significant group of Greek initiates. What did these teachings involve? What knowledge did they offer about the nature of reality, and why has so little of it survived? The Nyx mysteries, much like the more famous Eleusinian mysteries of Demeter and Persephone, were initiation-based rites that sought to reveal hidden truths about life and death. However, unlike the Eleusinian rites, which focused on themes of fertility, death, and rebirth, the Nyx mysteries explored the darker aspects of existence: sleep, death, the unconscious mind, and the transformative power of darkness itself. For those who participated, the journey was not about seeking enlightenment through the light of the sun, but rather about understanding the wisdom found in the shadows, the forgotten spaces of the psyche, and the cosmos. In ancient Greece, night was seen as a time of mystery and transformation. As the sun set, the world changed. People slept, their consciousness retreating into the depths of the unconscious mind. It was in this liminal space, the realm between wakefulness and sleep, that the Nyx mysteries found their focus. The teachings were said to delve into the nature of dreams, the unconscious mind, and even the concept of death, exploring how these states were all part of a greater cosmic cycle. In many ways, the philosophy of Nyx represented an exploration of the unknown, a search for wisdom that could not be accessed by the rational mind alone. Perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of the Nyx mysteries was the way they engaged with the concept of sleep. In many ancient cultures, sleep was not merely a physiological state, but a spiritual one. It was seen as a temporary death, a state in which the soul could travel beyond the confines of the body and engage with otherworldly forces. The mysteries of sleep, dreams, and the unconscious were central to the Nyx teachings. Initiates may have been taught how to manipulate their dreams or enter altered states of consciousness, using sleep as a portal to higher knowledge or even divine contact. Could the Nyx mysteries have included practices of lucid dreaming or other techniques to access the hidden realms of the mind? The symbolism of night and darkness was not inherently negative in the Nyx mysteries, as it is often portrayed in modern thought. Instead, darkness was viewed as a necessary counterpart to light, a space where things could be concealed, but also a place where deeper truths could be found. Darkness, in this sense, represented the potential for transformation. Initiates, by exploring this realm, would have been taught how to embrace their own shadow selves, those parts of their psyche that were hidden or repressed, and in doing so, gain deeper insights into their nature and their place in the universe. But the Nyx mysteries were not just about the exploration of the self. They were also about understanding the nature of the cosmos itself and the role that darkness plays in the cosmic order. In many ancient cultures, the cosmos was viewed as a balance between opposing forces, light and dark, life and death, order and chaos. The mysteries of night were seen as a means of connecting with the fundamental forces of the universe, those powers that lay beyond the reach of the everyday world. In this way, the Nyx mysteries may have offered initiates a profound insight into the very structure of existence, revealing a cosmic harmony that was governed by both light and darkness. The lost teachings of the Nyx mysteries raise a number of intriguing questions. What specific rituals did the initiates undergo? And what knowledge was imparted during these sacred rites? Were the teachings passed down in a written form, or were they entirely oral traditions, encoded in symbolic language and imagery? As is often the case with ancient spiritual traditions, the details of these teachings are elusive. Much of what we know comes from fragmentary references in the works of ancient philosophers, such as Plato and Aristotle, who occasionally mentioned the Nyx mysteries in passing. These references, however, are brief and lacking in detail, leaving us to wonder what was truly revealed in the darkness of Nyx's shadow. One of the most tantalizing aspects of the Nyx mysteries is the possibility that they were connected to other, more well-known mystery schools in the ancient world. Scholars have speculated that the teachings of Nyx may have influenced or been influenced by the rites of the Orphic Mysteries, which also explored the theme of death and rebirth. Additionally, there may be links to the Dionysian rites, which celebrated the transformative power of intoxication, ecstasy, and altered states of consciousness. Were these mystery traditions, with their shared emphasis on transcendence and transformation, all part of a broader spiritual movement that sought to understand the mysteries of life and death through ritual and experience? Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is why the Nyx mysteries have faded so completely from the historical record. Unlike the Eleusinian mysteries, which were well documented and had a lasting influence on Greek thought, the Nyx mysteries seem to have been relegated to the margins of history. Did the cult fall out of favor over time, or was it deliberately suppressed by later philosophical schools or political powers? Given the importance of night and death in their teachings, did the rise of more rational, daylight-centered philosophies in the classical world render the dark mysteries of Nyx irrelevant, even dangerous? As we reflect on the lost teachings of the Nyx mysteries, we are left with more questions than answers. What wisdom did these initiations impart to those who participated? How did they shape the spiritual landscape of ancient Greece, and what might we learn from them today? The shadows cast by Nyx still beckon us to look deeper, to seek out the hidden knowledge that may yet remain buried in the dark corners of history. The mystery of the night philosophy may never be fully understood, but the quest to uncover it continues to stir the imagination, suggesting that the hidden truths of the cosmos may still be waiting to be revealed, if only we are willing to seek them in the darkness.